Hokage. I managed to survive until I became the boss of Sannin. Chapter 1. Konoha 21st Year, Ninja Academy. The first ninja war has just ceased, but the cruelty of the war seems to have been far away from people for a long time. The whole class was filled with the joyful laughter of children playing and the noise of running around. Sitting in the seat above the class was a young man who was out of tune with the noisy atmosphere around him. He has black hair and a pair of deep black eyes under his messy bangs. Although he looks a little childish, his handsome face indicates that he will be a handsome man when he grows up. This person is our protagonist, the current Uchiha Kagura. Of course, he wasn't called this name a few years ago, he was just an ordinary otaku on Blue Star. He only remembered that as a Hokage enthusiast, he was playing a Hokage mobile game at home that night. Suddenly a white light flashed and he lost consciousness. When he opened his eyes again, he found that he had become a 3-year-old child. The scene of waking up is still vivid in my mind. At that time, I was soaked all over, and there was a group of people around me shouting something at me. After being stunned for a long time, I finally understood what happened from the words of the people around me. It turned out that the original owner of the 3-year-old body accidentally fell into the river. Fortunately, someone discovered it at the time and quickly rescued him. Are you really lucky? Only he understands in his heart. The original owner of this body may have died in the accident, but his soul passed through and took over his body. Looking at the dazed child in front of them, everyone said they were just scared of the unexpected incident, shook their heads and took him home. After following the adults home in a daze, he didn't know his current name until the next day. Uchiha. Kagura. Uchiha. I actually traveled to the Uchiha clan in the Hokage world. When he knew this fact, it should be said that Kagura felt a bitter taste in his mouth. Yes, he liked Uchiha very much in the original world. The handsome Sharingan and the high-definition settings make him the most popular group in Hokage. But being familiar with the plot of Hokage, he naturally knew that it would not be wonderful if he traveled through time and became one of them. Let's not talk about Uchiha Madara, who is the big boss behind the scenes, let's talk about the near future. A little monster named Uchiha Itachi will appear in the Uchiha clan. For the so-called righteousness, this clan will be exterminated. What is genocide? That means your life is at risk. Back to the present, Kagura, who was looking out the window in a daze with his chin in his hand, couldn't help but sigh. A few children not far away were talking quietly. Hey, what is that Uchiha monster doing again? Keep your voice down, do you want to be beaten by him again? HMPH. What are you afraid of? A few of us can't defeat him. You said the same thing last time, and we were all beaten up by him. Please stay away from me this time. Quote, Kagura-sama looks so handsome even when she is in a daze. Naturally, Kagura overheard the discussions of the little beanbags on the side. But at this time, he was not in the mood to pay attention to these children. It has been 5 years since I traveled through time. In order to change the fate of being killed in the future, he forced himself to practice continuously. Unknowingly, due to his strength far exceeding that of his peers, he gradually gained the title of Monster from Uchiha. As a time traveler, he naturally has a system. But unlike the protagonists in other novels, this system did not give him tasks or rewards. It just displays his abilities in data. Every improvement in ability can only be achieved through one's own efforts. Fortunately, this numerical ability also allows him to clearly see the results of each practice. After 5 years of training, he is now 8 years old and has the following abilities. Eye Technique. Single Magatama Sharingan, progress 93.5%. Physical Skills. Fourth Gate, Gate of Pain, progress 86.5%. Chakra. Chunin level, progress 32.5%. Quote, I don't know if it's because this body is truly gifted, or if it's the benefits brought by the internal system. His cultivation speed is obviously faster than others. When Kagura was 5 years old, he was able to activate the single Magatama Sharingan. Just to keep a low profile, I never showed it in front of others. After all, according to the records of the Uchiha clan, anyone who can open a single Magatama before the age of 10 is considered a genius. As for physical skills, he compared the plot of Hokage in his memory. He should be able to surpass Rock Lee, a physical skills genius of the same age. Just as he looked out the window and sighed again, a slightly arrogant girl's voice sounded beside him. "Hello, little fool, what are you sighing about?" There was no need to look back, he knew who was coming just by listening to the voice. "Leave him alone. Tsunade, come on a date with me after school. I found a good bookstore this time, and there are some books in it that we can't usually buy. Jiraiya, if you really dare to take Tsunade to buy that kind of book, I think Sarutobi-sensei might twist your head off." Kagura turned around helplessly, and sure enough, it was the legendary Sannin of Konoha. Of course, they are still far from reaching the strength of the Sannin title. In fact, Kagura, who entered the Ninja Academy at the age of 5, has been their classmate for 3 years. Compared with the giant man, in the future, the current Tsunade is just an overbearing princess typing. I don't know if it's because of the influence of her second grandfather, Senju Tobarama. Ever since Kagura entered school, she has been dissatisfied with her being from the Uchiha clan and often comes to provoke him for no reason. With the idea of not being as knowledgeable as these little brats, Kagura initially adopted a strategy of ignoring Tsunade's provocation. It's not that he is cold, you think of a person with a 20-year-old soul being stuffed into the body of a child. Naturally, he has no interest in the society of these peers. However, due to Tsunade's special life experience, she developed a slightly arrogant character. After a verbal provocation failed, she couldn't help but take action against Kagura. Kagura naturally couldn't bear this and beat her up hard. As Tsunade's best friends, Jiraiya and Orochimaru were also involved in the battle, but not surprisingly, all 3 of them were beaten up by him. Unexpectedly, this move was like poking a hornet's nest. After learning about this incident, other boys in the class actually challenged Kagura. But even a person with the qualifications of Sannin can't win, so naturally these little brats can't please him either. After almost all the boys in the class were beaten by Kagura, gradually these people no longer dared to challenge him. And Kagura's reputation as a monster was confirmed because of this. As for the girls in the class, most of them are Kagura's beauty fans. So sometimes people who are handsome can really do whatever they want. In the end, only the Sannin, headed by Tsunade, still had the courage to challenge Kagura after many failures. As time went by, the 2 of them slowly developed an alternative friendship. Seeing Tsunade and the others walking towards Kagura to speak, the students around them started talking in low voices. As expected of Princess Tsunade, she is the only one who dares to approach that monster. Yes, but why is that guy Jiraiya so familiar with that monster? Ah, what a monster. Of course you won't understand the attraction of someone like Kagura-sama. Looking at the 3 people in front of him, Kagura couldn't help but start to have a headache again. Speaking of which, the reason why he is so sad now actually has something to do with the 3 people in front of him. It has been 5 years since the system issued a task to itself for the first time. Just this morning, the system's mission information appeared in his mind. But no matter how he looked at the task content, he felt that the system was playing tricks on him. Ding! Please complete the task. Kiss one of the Sannin. Quote. Mission. Kiss any one of the Sannin to complete the mission. Mission rewards. 1. You can increase the progress by 10% from any one of the 3 attributes. 2. You can randomly draw a ninjutsu and understand it. Quote. Looking at the mission information that appeared in his mind, Kagura was excited but also angry. Naturally, I was excited because this broken system finally issued a task to me. You must know that since time travel, apart from being able to check your ability progress, this so-called system has not been helpful to you at all. Compared with those colleagues who brought their own 9 tails or something as soon as they traveled through time, I was simply weak. Especially the sense of crisis brought about by being reincarnated into the Uchiha clan made him even more dissatisfied. But today's mission message made him feel once again that he was also a man with cheats. As for the anger, it was naturally directed at the content of this mission. What does it mean to kiss one of the Sannin? Brother, one of these 3 people is a woman. Although Tsunade is still a washboard now, Kagura certainly knows the future development of this woman. The nickname, Juhao, is not for nothing, and he also has the secret technique of keeping youthful and youthful. It can be said that if you have to find a wife, the one in front of you is the best candidate. However, anyone can pursue her, but I can't. If I had to say why, it would naturally be because of my Uchiha name. He had been deliberately keeping a distance from Tsunade and others before, not only because he didn't want to take the children to play, but also because of the family relationship between the two parties. This was last year when Tsunade and her second uncle Senju Tobarama went to Kumogakure to sign a peace agreement. He was ambushed and died. Otherwise, given the second Hokage's character, if he and Tsunade had a few more words, he might be caught by Anbu for interrogation at night. Thinking about these, Kagura unconsciously looked at Tsunade in front of her. Seeing the strange look Kagura gave her, Tsunade crossed her arms warily and took a step back, and said a little shyly, What are you looking at?" Realizing her presumption, Kagura immediately changed her eyes. He rubbed his forehead with his right hand and said, "What can you show me? Why did you come to see me? You want to fight with me again?" After hearing Kagura's first words, Tsunade's chest kept rising and falling with anger. But as he said, Tsunade, who is still a washboard, cannot arouse anyone's interest at this time. Except for a certain little colored embryo with white hair and a red line under each eye. Taking a deep breath, Tsunade finally suppressed the anger in her heart and stated the purpose of her coming. "Idiot, tomorrow isn't the school graduation day. I think you don't have anywhere to go. Would you like to have dinner with us to celebrate tomorrow night?" But as soon as she finished speaking, Kagura's replying voice came over. "No, no need, thank you." Hearing this, Tsunade was also stunned for a moment. She didn't expect Kagura to refuse so simply. Before she could get angry, Jiraiya, who was at the side, rushed forward first. Since the aisle was only one person wide, Tsunade was standing in front. Jiraiya jumped directly onto the table, squatted down and looked down at Kagura, and said unhappily, "I told you, kid, don't just refuse other people's kindness. We invited you as a friend." Looking at Jiraiya, whose face was almost close to his, Kagura was about to say something helplessly. At this time, an accident happened. Because Jiraiya was squatting on the table and staring at Kagura, his buttocks were raised toward the next column. At this time, there happened to be a student in the next row who wanted to get up from his seat and go out. He whispered, "Give," in a low voice. Without waiting for Jiraiya to react, he stood up and pushed Jiraiya. Jiraiya, who had no time to react, was pushed forward and fell forward, and in front of him was Kagura, who wanted to speak. Kagura felt that her mouth was blocked by something, and her words were interrupted just as she reached her mouth. Looking at the familiar long red eye shadow in front of her, Kagura's eyes widened. The originally noisy classroom seemed to have been pressed on the pause button, and everyone looked at it blankly. Tsunade, who was closest to the two, felt her head go blank for a while, as if she still hadn't understood what was happening. The classmate who was the initiator was the first to react. He said silently, "Well, it's none of my business. I already said give in." After saying that, he hurriedly left the scene as if running away. Only then did Tsunade react, punching Jiraiya and sending him flying several meters away. He yelled angrily, "Jiraiya, what the hell are you doing?" This sound also seemed to remove the pause button, and the originally silent classroom suddenly began to boil. "Jiraiya, are you so fierce?" As expected of Jiraiya. "Even monsters dare to invade. I would like to call you the strongest embryo in Konoha. Jiraiya, how dare you kiss Lord Kagura? I'll fight you." Jiraiya, who had not yet recovered from Tsunade's blow, was once again surrounded and beaten by a group of girls. He stretched out his hand to Orochimaru in panic and shouted loudly, "It was just an accident. Orochimaru, help me." Orochimaru, who remained calm throughout, returned to his seat leisurely as if he had not seen this scene. As the protagonist, Kagura helplessly covered her head with her hands and closed her eyes. The farce was finally stopped by the teacher, who returned to the classroom. And Jiraiya, who was rescued from the siege of girls with difficulty, was already bruised and swollen, and his original appearance was almost unrecognizable. Even so, he still muttered miserably to Orochimaru, "You are so heartless, you didn't even save me." Facing his friend's questioning, Orochimaru still maintained a calm expression and ignored him. The sun slowly set in the west, and as the classroom bell rang, they finally got out of school. Looking at the back of Kagura, who left directly, Tsunade pursed her lips, as if she wanted to say something. Finally, as if thinking of other things, he stamped his feet angrily, turned around and walked towards the other side. He shouted through gritted teeth, "Jiraiya, get over here." Kagura didn't notice what happened behind her and walked straight towards her home. At this time, Uchiha was still an influential clan in Konoha village. All Uchiha people are planned to live in an area next to the center of the village. Passing through the center of Konoha village, Kagura has arrived at the gathering place of Uchiha. As he walked slowly, many Uchiha tribesmen appeared on both sides of the road. Some old people and children greeted him enthusiastically, and Kagura also nodded to the clan members along the way. Kagura ni. Suddenly, a young boy appeared in front of him and called him sweetly. Looking at the child in front of him, Kagura's eyes flashed with helplessness. He knelt down, stared at the little boy in front of him, touched his hair and said, "What's wrong, little Fugaku?" "Yes, the 3-year-old boy in front of me is Uchiha Fugaku. If everyone still doesn't know who he is, then everyone will definitely be more familiar with his other identity. He is the father of Uchiha Itachi and Sasuke, the Uchiha chief who wants to lead his tribe to rebellion 20 years later." When he thought that he might be killed by the son of the little guy in front of him in the future, Kagura couldn't help but tighten her hand stroking his hair. However, Uchiha Fugaku, who didn't understand Kagura's complicated thoughts, still said in that sweet childish voice, "Brother Kagura, I heard that you will graduate from the ninja school tomorrow. And she also defeated Tsunade from the Senju clan and graduated first, right?" Looking at the clear eyes of the child in front of him, Kagura smiled and nodded. Seeing Kagura nodding, a bright light seemed to flash in Shao Fugaku's eyes, and he said excitedly, "I knew brother Kagura was the strongest. I will become like my brother in the future and become the pride of the Uchiha clan." "No, you don't actually have to work so hard." Looking at the excited Fugaku in front of him, Kagura wanted to advise him like this. After a few casual words, Kagura finally drove the slightly excited child back home. By the way, his wife Makoto seems to be born in 2 years. If his marriage to Makoto was disrupted, Uchiha Itachi would not have been born. Will I not be killed? No, he might still embark on the path of rebellion against Konoha. So even if there is no Itachi, there is still a high possibility that Uchiha will be exterminated. The most important thing is that if this were done, Uchiha Sasuke, a fool, would not have been born. So when Otsutsuki Kagaya appears later, who will cooperate with Naruto to fight the final boss? Thinking about all this, Kagura walked to his home unknowingly. Opening the door, there was no one inside. This does not mean that a time traveler must have both parents die. In fact, Konoha now has just experienced the Warring States period and the First Ninja War. There are countless examples like him of parents who were ninjas and died on the front line. Therefore, Kagura has never seen her parents since time travel. Of course, even if she did, she wouldn't have much affection for them. After closing the door, I finally felt a sense of relief from being alone, and couldn't wait to check the system. Although it was somewhat different from what he had imagined, the mission of kissing one of the Sannin was finally completed. Looking at the task completion prompt in the system, he breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the 2 rewards, he did not hesitate to add the first reward of increasing a certain attribute by 10% to the pupil technique. In fact, during these years of practice, he also discovered a fact. That is, the higher the level, the slower and slower the effects of cultivation will be. Take pupil surgery as an example. It only took him 2 years to open his eyes. But it has been 3 years since he opened his eyes, and he is still stuck at the level of single Magatama Sharingan. And compared with the other 2 items, if you add 10% to the pupil technique, you can break through to the next level. It doesn't take much thinking to know which item to add. As he clicked OK, a pain came from his eyes. If he looks at the mirror at this time, he will find that his eyes have automatically appeared in the state of single Magatama Sharingan. As the pain in his eyes became stronger and stronger, the single Magatama in his eyes slowly began to rotate. Fortunately, the pain only lasted for 5 minutes and then stopped, and the rotating Sharingan also stopped. Just look carefully and you will see that Kagura's Sharingan has changed from a single Magatama to a double Magatama. Kagura, who felt the changes in her body, quickly looked at the system. When she saw the mark on the system, I technique, double Magatama Sharingan, progress 6.5%. He finally felt relieved. He did not immediately feel the changes brought about by the new Sharingan. He directly received the next reward, randomly selected a ninjutsu and understood it. A turntable appeared in his mind. On the high-speed rotating turntable, ninjutsu names such as Water Dragon Bullet, Raikiri, and Ultimate Earth Reincarnation could be vaguely seen. With his expectant eyes, the turntable finally began to stop slowly. When he saw the ninjutsu shown at the end, he couldn't help but be surprised. It's actually this. There was nothing to say all night, and in the blink of an eye it was the early morning of the next day. Today is the graduation day for their class. Kagura got up early in the morning and made breakfast for herself. What ninjutsu did he pull last night, you ask? Don't worry, the answer will naturally be revealed in the next few chapters. I have to say that as a villager of Konoha village, Kagura is lucky. Because his parents were both killed on the battlefield as ninjas, as an orphan, he can receive a monthly living allowance. Although it is not much, it is enough to support my daily needs. He still maintained Chinese eating habits. After eating a portion of piping hot noodles he made, he set off to school in a hurry. In order to celebrate the graduation of students, the Ninja Academy also decorated ribbons and other decorations in front of the school gate today. The graduation assessment for ninja school students was completed a week ago. Unlike other schools, graduating from a ninja school does not mean that you can graduate successfully after studying step by step for a number of years. It is a child who has achieved certain attainments in ninjutsu and has initially learned the three-body technique after studying. Only after graduating from the ninja school and being granted the status of genin. Those who fail the exam will either become ordinary people or repeat the grade to continue studying at the Ninja Academy. Therefore, even the students who graduated from the same batch as Kagura and others are of different ages. For someone like Kagura to graduate with first place at the age of 8, it is considered a new record in the Ninja Academy. Kagura and the others naturally did not need to attend class today. After arriving at school, everyone was gathered in the auditorium. After listening to the speech of Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was about to take office as the third Hokage, and awarding forehead protectors to all the students, their last day at the Ninja Academy ended. Of course, it also heralds the birth of a new batch of genin. After disbanding on the spot, the atmosphere in the school became lively again. On this day alone, parents of children are allowed to enter the school. Some students were holding the Konoha forehead protectors they had just received, and were talking excitedly to their parents. Some parents proudly picked up their children and told them with serious faces what they need to pay attention to after becoming ninjas. Of course, as said before, there are quite a few children in Konoha village who are war orphans whose parents died. At this time, Kagura was playing with the forehead protector in her hand while chatting wordlessly with Orochimaru, who was also alone. In fact, during these 3 years of getting along, Orochimaru was far from the perverted image he had in his original impression. At this time, Orochimaru has not fallen into the abyss of darkness. Although he is usually a bit taciturn, he is generally a polite and good boy. Looking at Orochimaru's fair complexion, Kagura said, "So, you three were finally assigned to the same class, right?" In fact, there was no need to ask at all. Kagura, who already knew the plot, naturally knew that these 3 people would be assigned to the same class after graduation. Orochimaru nodded and then asked, Yes, what about you Kagura? Which class were you assigned to? Do you know who you will team up with in the future?" Hearing his question, Kagura shook her head and said she didn't know clearly. Seeing Kagura's statement, Orochimaru continued to ask doubtfully, Didn't you ask other students? Even if the teacher doesn't notify you, as long as you know where you need to gather tomorrow, you can roughly know who you will be grouped with." Quote. Hearing this, Kagura touched her hair embarrassedly and said, "Well, you also know my relationship with those classmates. So I didn't ask." Hearing this, Orochimaru also closed his mouth in time. Kagura's relationship with her classmates, including myself, most of the people in the class have been beaten by him at least once. Where can this relationship go? Fortunately, someone came over to them and resolved the embarrassment at this time. There were two people walking towards them. One of them had dazzling silvery white hair, stood straight up, and was wearing a combat uniform similar to Jonin's. The other person had a watermelon head, thick eyebrows and big eyes, and was wearing an indescribable green sportswear. These two are Hokage Sakumo and Matt Dai. Well, they will be Kakashi and Kai's respective fathers in the future. Yes, these two people are also students in the same class as Kagura and the others. It can be said that they are the only two male students in the class who have not been beaten by Kagura. So relatively speaking, Kagura's relationship with them is not bad. Hokage Sakumo, who had already put the Konoha forehead protector on his head, walked up to Kagura, smiled happily and said, "As expected, my scores in this exam are still not as good as yours. But I will definitely become a chunin faster than you." Quote. Looking at the hot-blooded silver-haired boy in front of him, who would have thought that he was actually the father of Kakashi who stared at him all day long. Matt Dai on the side also excitedly interjected. Haha, as expected, a man needs a strong rival in his life. Don't worry, I will definitely become a chunin faster than you. Shu narrowed his eyes. Kagura turned around and glanced at the shiny watermelon head, and said helplessly. But, I remember you didn't graduate this time. Yes, although they are students from the same batch, Matt Dai did not pass the assessment this time, and he was repeated a grade. Hearing Kagura's complaints, Matt Dai didn't pay attention. Instead, he gave a thumbs up to Kagura, showed his white shining teeth and laughed. Haha, no problem, my fierce enemy is waiting for me to catch up on the road ahead. Sometimes Kagura really envies this inexplicable self-confidence. After exchanging a few words, the two men left. At this time, Tsunade walked towards them. Behind her, there was another woman following leisurely. The woman had red hair, a pair of buns, and a crown-like ornament on her head. There is a purple diamond-shaped mark on his forehead, two buns with charm-like decorations hanging on them, and he is wearing a white kimono. It was Tsunade's grandmother, Senju Hashirama's wife, and the first Jinchuriki of Konoha village, Uzumaki Mito. Seeing this person walking towards them, Kagura and Orochimaru both quickly bowed. For this man who adheres to the belief of loving the village, supporting and protecting the people he loves, and spends his life guarding the existence of the village, Kagura still truly respects him. Although he is over 40 years old, Uzumaki Mito still maintains his good looks and smiles at the two of them and says, "Tsunade is troublesome to take care of you two at school." Before the two of them could react, she tilted her head slightly, looked at Kagura and continued. "Are you the strongest kid of Uchiha's generation?" Looking at the kind woman in front of him, Kagura felt a sense of nervousness. Just kidding, despite her harmless appearance, she is the current Nine Tails Jinchuriki. And due to the effect of the Nine Tails chakra, it is said that she has a keen sense of evil. Feeling the scrutinizing eyes of Uzumaki Mito, Kagura felt uneasy all over. Fortunately, the feeling of scrutiny did not last long. Uzumaki Mito smiled slightly, and the atmosphere suddenly became softer. She nodded and said, "Don't be nervous. Well, I sense that you are a good boy. I believe Uchiha can have a better future in your hands." Quote. Looking at Kagura, who was a little overwhelmed, she did not continue to say anything, but turned to Tsunade beside her and told her, "Have a good time with friends today, but don't come back too late." Tsunade, who usually looks like a little girl, is now as well behaved as a rabbit. She lowered her head and responded obediently, "I got it, Grandma." With Uzumaki Mito leaving, the atmosphere among everyone became relaxed again. Tsunade, who returned to her usual appearance again, raised her head high and said to Kagura, "Idiot, how did you think about my invitation yesterday?" Facing this question, Kagura was confused. "No, didn't I clearly refuse yesterday?" Hearing Kagura's still refusal answer, Tsunade frowned. As if she thought of something, her frown smoothed away. She looked at Kagura with a malicious smile and said, "If you don't come, I told my grandmother that you were bullying me." Quote. "Nani, you are being a little unreasonable." As everyone dispersed, Calm slowly returned to the front of the ninja school. After explaining the party tonight to his family, Jiraiya finally arrived at the place they had agreed on in advance. Looking at the black-haired and dark-eyed Kagura, his eyelids couldn't help but raise. He asked in a bad tone. I said, you kid, didn't you keep saying that you couldn't do it yesterday? Why did you come here today? Faced with the question, Kagura didn't bother to answer him and just rolled her eyes at him. Facts have proven that reasoning with women doesn't work. Under Tsunade's threat, Kagura finally came along. After all, the reason for keeping a distance from Tsunade at the beginning was because of their identities. In fact, from a psychological point of view, Kagura does not dislike Tsunade. Moreover, after graduating from school, the two of them are destined to be assigned to different teams, so the chances of getting along again will become less and less in the future. Thinking of this, Kagura stopped resisting and followed them resignedly. At this time, Tsunade stood up and shouted angrily at Jiraiya. Why do you care so much? Kagura is here now anyway, so just shut up and wait. Jiraiya shrank his head and curled his lips in frustration. Tsunade acted like a big sister, looked around for a while, waved her hand and said, okay, now that everyone is here, let's set off. At this time, Orochimaru, who had been calm all this time, asked. But where are we going? Before, I just said that I wanted to go out to get together, but I didn't think about where to go at all. Quote. Circle.operator O circle.operator. Upon hearing this, Tsunade paused and slowly lowered her raised hand. Yes, they only said they were going to have a party, but they never discussed where they were going. She tilted her head and thought for a while, trying hard to think about the gathering scenes of those elders. Suddenly he made a fist with his right hand and slapped it on his left palm, and said excitedly. Let's go find a place to have a big meal. My father and the others always find a place to drink and eat at every gathering. Kagura and Orochimaru looked at each other and said in unison. It's the end of the month and we have no money. Yes, these two orphans live on the compassionate money distributed by the village every month. Although it's not too little, don't think there will be too much left. Jiraiya touched his head and said, I spent all my pocket money buying books in the past few days. He laughed a few times embarrassedly as he spoke. Having said this, the three of them suddenly looked at Tsunade in unison. Looking at everyone's gaze, Tsunade took half a step back nervously. Jiraiya's eyes lit up and he said excitedly, I heard, Tsunade, that your father is the son of a daimyo from the land of fire. You should have a lot of pocket money, right? Facing everyone's expectant eyes, Tsunade swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said unnaturally. My family stopped giving me pocket money a long time ago. They were afraid that I would take it to the casino. The words became quieter and quieter, until finally the three of them could hardly hear what she was saying. Hearing this, Kagura suddenly realized. By the way, I almost forgot that the person in front of me was nicknamed Casino Sheep. And her gambling habit was developed with the first-generation Hokage when she was only a few years old. Kagura sighed, looked at Tsunade with narrowed eyes and concluded. So, you don't hesitate to use threats to force me to come over. And then you find out that we paupers have no place to go. Although the words were a bit unpleasant, Tsunade had to admit that what he said made sense. Looking at the dejected Tsunade, Kagura shook her head and smiled bitterly. Then he raised his hands and clapped them, and after attracting everyone's attention, he said. Okay, it's not completely impossible. You all have some money with you, right? Take it all out, right? Although the three of them didn't know what Kagura wanted to do, they looked at each other in confusion and obediently took out the money. After counting the funds raised by everyone, Kagura nodded with satisfaction and said to himself. Yes, not bad. These should be enough. Quote. After saying that, he ignored the three of them, raised his legs and walked out. Although the few people behind him didn't know what was going on, they still followed him consciously. Following Kagura's footsteps, they turned around several streets and found that they had arrived at the vegetable market. Hey, Grandma, you are also very energetic today. Yes, please help me get some meat, for about 4 people. Oh, I'll give it a green onion. Speaking of which, sister, you seem to be more beautiful today. The three of them watched with dull faces as Kagura walked among the stalls with familiarity. After a while, bags of ingredients appeared in Kagura's hands. Although she guessed what Kagura was going to do, Tsunade still asked hesitantly. Are you going to prepare your own meals? Giving her an annoyed look, Kagura asked. Otherwise. Tsunade opened her eyes wide in surprise and asked again. Can you cook? Otherwise, hearing his answer, the three of them were surprised and looked at him with admiration. Kagura, who sensed something was wrong, finally came to her senses and asked cautiously. You don't know how to cook? The three of them nodded in unison. He looked at Orochimaru in disbelief and said, Don't you live alone? So what do you usually eat? Well, usually it's cup noodles, and occasionally I buy some bread. Orochimaru said. Looking at him with contempt, Kagura curled her lips and said. No wonder you always look malnourished. Orochimaru. After purchasing food, Kagura led everyone directly to his home. Speaking of which, this was the first time he brought someone to his home after traveling through time. After entering the door, Tsunade looked around excitedly. The place where Kagura lives is small and can be seen almost at a glance, but it is very neat. After Tsunade took the initiative to ask Ying for help, she accidentally split the chopping board into 2 pieces with a knife. Kagura made a serious face and invited the 3 god tiers to the living room. When he was still at Blue Star, as an otaku, although he was not a great chef, he still knew some cooking skills. Coupled with the 5 years of training after living alone after time travel, Kagura is now able to say that practice makes perfect. In less than an hour, 4 dishes and 1 soup were served in front of everyone. The tangy aroma hit their noses, making the 3 of them unable to sit still. Jiraiya moved his nose and felt the saliva in his mouth being secreted crazily. Seeing the 3 people secretly swallowing their saliva, Kagura smiled secretly and said, Okay, you're welcome. Let's get started. Quote, as soon as she finished speaking, Tsunade, who had been impatient for a long time, took the lead in picking up a piece of beautiful meat and stuffed it into her mouth. Her eyes lit up and she praised loudly. Kagura, your cooking is so delicious. What's this? Oh, this is twice cooked pork. Hiss, so spicy. What about this one? That's Mapo tofu. After just 20 minutes, the 3 of them were lying on the floor contentedly. Jiraiya rubbed his belly and said, I didn't expect your cooking to be so good, Kagura. I think you wasted your time as a ninja. You should open a restaurant. Hiccup. Although I really want to refute him, at this time I think Jiraiya is right. Tsunade burped unceremoniously and agreed. Orochimaru did not speak, but closed his eyes as if savoring the taste just now. Kagura sat calmly at the table, picked up a cup of hot tea and took a sip, not wanting to talk to them. By the way, who do you think our respective teachers will be tomorrow? Tsunade turned over and suddenly asked. It seemed that the topic had been opened, and the 3 of them began to discuss it. In the end, even Kagura, who was like an old man, slowly joined the discussion. Youth is always beautiful, and soon there was noise and joyful laughter from Kagura's house. The bright moon quietly climbed into the night sky at some point, and the 3 of them walked out of Kagura's house one after another. While waving goodbye to Kagura, he walked towards his home. Looking at the people leaving, Kagura stood at the door, seemingly wanting to retain the relaxation of this moment. Ahem, I didn't expect that you would invite little Kagura to your home, it really surprised me. Quote. At this time, a voice came from beside me. Kagura turned to look and said respectfully, Mr. Mirror, good evening. The person who spoke was none other than Uchiha Kagami, a rare person among the Uchiha clan who could gain the trust of Senju Tobirama. Last year, when he followed Senju Tobirama to sign the armistice agreement in Union Village, he was attacked by the Golden Horn Silver Horn of Union Village. In order for him, Danzo and others to escape from the predicament, Senju Tobirama faced the enemy alone, but later died due to serious injuries. Although Uchiha Mirror escaped from the ambush and returned to the village, he was seriously injured and could not afford to fall ill. Kagura, who was familiar with the plot, knew that the peace-loving tribesmen in front of her might not survive this year. Smiling at Kagura, Uchiha Mirror said, Little Kagura, you are too lonely, you are always alone, which makes people a little worried. But seeing you starting to make friends makes me feel relieved. I'm afraid I won't live long. The Uchiha clan is too proud, and I always feel like there may be problems in the future. I hope your generation can lead Uchiha to truly integrate into Konoha. Quote. Ha, your hunch is right. Not only will there be problems, but the entire clan will be exterminated in 20 years, okay. She complained a few words in her mind, but Kagura did not respond. Just looking at the slightly blurry figure in the distance, he murmured to himself. Companion, it seems to feel good. The next morning, Kagura arrived at the gathering place that the school informed him of yesterday. In addition to being curious about Jonin's team members and team leader in the next few years, it was also because the system issued another task for him last night. Mission: successfully capture Jonin's bell in the team assessment. Mission rewards: 1. Start tailed beast training. 2. You can randomly draw a ninjutsu and understand it. Quote. The tailed beast he longs for. As the protagonist, he is embarrassed to wander around in this world without a few tailed beasts living in him. The so-called assessment that he didn't care about at first suddenly became important. For this reason, Kagura adjusted his state early in the morning. As time passed, he finally met the other team members and the leader Jonin. Just looking at those figures, his eyes widened in disbelief. How could it be them? Looking at Jiraiya, Orochimaru and Tsunade who were walking slowly, Kagura looked at the note in her hand recording the meeting place in confusion. Why is it you guys? Both sides asked in unison. Indeed, one cannot blame them for reacting this way. 3 people form a group is a rule set by Konoha since its founding. Last night, after learning that these 3 people formed a team as in the original history, the 2 sides did not even bother to ask about their respective gathering places. After all, everyone subconsciously thought that they were divided into different groups. Haha, your meeting place is right. Due to the number of students in this class, Kagura was specially added to our 7th class. Quote. While everyone was still confused, a voice came from above them. Everyone looked upward following the sound, and saw a figure standing on the tree looking down at them. Sarutobi-sensei, the 4 said in unison. Hee. With a slight smile, Sarutobi Hiruzen jumped down from the tree and continued. So, there will be 4 people in class 7 this time. And I am your teacher. Quote. But, teacher, aren't you about to take over as Hokage? Can you still lead us out to pick up the mission? Tsunade asked confused. Sarutobi scratched his head and explained. I haven't taken office yet, I have to complete the work at hand. The task now is to lead your 7th class. If Hokage takes over later, other Jonin will naturally become your teachers. Quote. All right. After clapping his hands, he took out 3 bells from his waist and continued with a smile. Back to the topic, the so-called ninjas who have just become genin must go through an assessment. See the 3 bells in my hand. No matter what method you use, as long as you can grab the bell in my hand, you are considered qualified. If you can't get it, then I will give you a ranking based on your performance. The person who does not get the bell in the end will be tied to a stake for punishment. Quote. After saying that, he drew his hand inward, and the 3 bells disappeared from his hand. He took out a stick of incense from his jacket, lit it, and stuck it on the stake. He looked at the people in front of him and announced. The assessment officially begins, and the time is 1 stick of incense. As soon as the words fell, everyone's eyes froze, several black shadows flashed past, and everyone disappeared. Seeing everyone's reactions, Sarutobi crossed his chest with one hand, cupped his right hand, rubbed his chin, and said with a smile. Come on, the game officially begins. Before he finished speaking, his figure had disappeared from the spot. Jiraiya was squatting on a tree at this time, his eyes fixed on Sarutobi Hiruzen not far ahead. Sarutobi Hiruzen was placing his right hand on his brow at this time, looking around as if looking for them. Jiraiya's eyes were attracted by the bell hanging on his waist, and he smiled triumphantly. Haha, teacher, you really underestimate the enemy. When Sarutobi turned around, his back was completely facing him. Chance. He glared hard, suddenly jumped down from the tree, and rushed towards Sarutobi's back. Ha ha, the bell belongs to me. Ah, before he could finish speaking, his foot was suddenly caught by a noose. The whole person was suddenly lifted up, and his head was hung in the air. At this time, Sarutobi also turned around, walked towards him, and said with a smile. Boy, you have 2 questions. First, if you want to ambush the enemy, please don't speak loudly when you rush up. Otherwise your ambush will be meaningless. Quote. Second, when you want to ambush the enemy, please use your pig brain to judge whether there are traps. Don't fall for such a crude trap. Quote. After saying that, he walked up to Jiraiya, stretched out his index finger and poked his head politely. I'm not convinced, please put me down. Jiraiya, who was hung in the air, struggled hard and kept shouting. Sarutobi Hiruzen was about to say something more when suddenly a shuriken flew towards him from deep in the woods. Jumping back, he easily dodged the sneak attack. But as soon as he stood firm, several more shurikens appeared from the woods and shot towards the place where he landed. Sarutobi Hiruzen still calmly took out the kunai from his waist, intending to challenge the attack in front of him. Just as the shuriken came to him, a voice came from deep in the forest. Shadow Shuriken. As that voice came out, the several shurikens suddenly split into dozens of black shadows and rushed towards them. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked stunned for a moment, then showed a satisfied smile. He still didn't make any extra moves, but his right hand suddenly transformed into black shadows, and he actually shot down dozens of shurikens with one hand. At this time, a figure appeared in midair. My feet hurt. The person coming was none other than Tsunade. But Sarutobi Hiruzen, who had already sensed her, kicked hard and disappeared from the place in an instant. Tsunade suddenly fell from the air with a courageous momentum. Boom! With a loud noise, centered on her right foot that landed on the ground, the entire ground collapsed in the shape of a spider web. This is really a strange and powerful woman. Looking at the scene in front of him, Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but have this thought flashing through his mind. Tsunade did not stop after landing, but gathered chakra in her hands and continued to rush towards him. Sarutobi did not retreat but advanced this time, and also rushed towards Tsunade. Just as the two figures intertwined, a slight sideways movement perfectly avoided Tsunade's straight punch. He even had the energy to get close to Tsunade and educate him. The power is good, but you have to hit the enemy to be useful. Before Tsunade could show a surprised expression, her arm had already been grabbed by Sarutobi Hiruzen. Suddenly there was an emergency stop, and Tsunade was like a toy, held by Hiruzen Sarutobi and spun around for 2 weeks before throwing it towards a big tree. There was another loud noise, and Tsunade directly broke the big tree and fell to the ground, stirring up a large amount of dust. There is a flaw. Before the dust mist over there dispersed, Orochimaru, who had been hiding in the woods, finally attacked. Just as Sarutobi Hiruzen threw Tsunade out of his hand, Orochimaru rushed out from behind him. Holding a kunai tightly in his hand, he resolutely threw it towards the back. A black shadow flew past, and the kunai was accurately inserted into the man's back. Success! Bang! Before Orochimaru could react to the surprise of the hit, as a gray mist rose, the figure suddenly turned into a wooden stake. You're going to suffer. It's a substitute technique. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, a voice sounded from behind him. Hey, didn't I just say that when ambushing an enemy, you should first consider whether there are traps? Quote. As soon as he finished speaking, Sarutobi Hiruzen swung his sword. With a muffled cry, Orochimaru fell down. At this time, only 2 minutes had passed since the entire battle began. At this point, Sannin is completely destroyed. After a short battle, 2 people fell down, and one was hanging in the air, screaming. Looking at the defeated disciples, Sarutobi Hiruzen showed a satisfied smile and said, Well, except for that idiot Jiraiya. You two have made great progress, you just lack the experience of fighting. Quote. After speaking, he looked around and suddenly shouted to the woods not far away. I said, that boy from Uchiha. Aren't you planning to come out yet? Your companions have all fallen. There was a sudden silence, and a figure slowly walked out of the woods. The person coming was none other than Kagura, who had been hiding in the dark to observe the battle. When he reached about 20 meters away from Sarutobi Hiruzen, he stopped. He sighed secretly in his heart. Originally, he thought that relying on those 3 people could bring some trouble to this one, and then he could take advantage of the chaos. But he didn't expect that the entire battle would end within 2 minutes. In such terrain and in front of such an opponent, an ambush has no meaning. Clenching the kunai in his hand, he looked up at Hiruzen Sarutobi and assumed a fighting stance. At this time, his eyes had already turned into Sharingan, and the 2 Magatama in his eyes were slowly rotating. The moment he saw Kagura's Sharingan, a serious expression appeared on Sarutobi Hiruzen's face for the first time. He said thoughtfully, You've actually opened the second Magatama Sharingan. No wonder the flaw I sold just now only seduced that boy Orochimaru. You saw through it from the beginning that it was a substitute, right? But it seems that even the Uchiha clan doesn't know about you opening Sharingan. Holding the kunai in his right hand and raising it to his eyebrows, Kagura replied solemnly. The trump card always has to be revealed at the end to be useful, right? After saying that, he turned into a shadow and rushed forward without waiting for Sarutobi Hiruzen to speak again. Sarutobi Hiruzen quickly calmed down and took out a kunai to attack. As the sounds of several metal collisions were heard, the fighting between the two people was so fast that it turned into a mass of afterimages. After the real fight, Sarutobi Hiruzen was even more surprised. This kid, his physical skills are so strong. This can already reach the level of Chunin. And coupled with his Sharingan's observation ability, I can't defeat him with physical skills in a short time. At this time, Tsunade and Orochimaru outside the field finally recovered and sat on the ground. Looking at the battle between the two men not far away, their faces turned pale. This Kagura, he has never used his true strength in school. Judging from his current performance, we can't even get close to him. Tsunade gritted her teeth and thought. She slowly clenched her fists. Although she was unwilling to give in, the distance between herself and the other party was obvious. When, as an unusually loud collision sound came, the figures of the two men finally appeared again. Their kunai struck each other, and for a moment the two sides were at a stalemate. Sarutobi Hiruzen also did not expect that Kagura's speed and strength far exceeded his expectations. Seeing the kunai in a stalemate, Kagura's free left hand suddenly began to form a single-handed seal. What? Just as a bad thought flashed through Sarutobi Hiruzen's mind, the opposite Kagura had already completed the seal. He clenched his left hand into a fist and put it on his mouth. Fire style. Great fireball technique. A huge fireball appeared in front of Kagura. However, just before the fireball appeared, Sarutobi Hiruzen had already let go of the shuriken in his hand. After taking a step back, he clapped his hands on the ground, and a huge stone wall appeared in front of him. Earth style. Earth flow wall. Orochimaru was obviously even more surprised when he saw this scene. Determined to study all ninjutsu, he naturally understood what it meant to be able to form seals with one hand. If chakra is blue energy, then seals are a way to help ninjas quickly guide the transformation of chakra into ninjutsu. Only after you have a profound understanding of ninjutsu can you use one-hand seals or reduced seal gestures to successfully activate ninjutsu. Apparently, Kagura's attainments even in ninjutsu are far beyond their imagination. Of course I made this up. However, I also want to complain about the setting of Hokage. In the early stage, Kakashi had to perform hand seals for half a minute to steal a B-level water dragon bomb. Later A-level Reikiri and Rasengan are released instantly. On the battlefield, before Sarutobi Hiruzen could breathe a sigh of relief, two Kagura suddenly appeared behind him. One of them jumped into the air, quickly formed hand seals, and spit out fireballs continuously from his mouth. Fire style Phoenix Sage Fire. Another person threw several shurikens at him, and those shurikens suddenly surged into dozens in midair. It is the ninjutsu that was just copied from Orochimaru, Shadow Shuriken. As a huge explosion sounded, dozens of attacks fell on where Sarutobi Hiruzen was standing. The huge explosion also stirred up a burst of gray fog, making it difficult to see what was going on inside. At this time, even Tsunade and the other three people who had been watching from the side unconsciously stretched their necks, wanting to know the result. Did you make it? Just when this question flashed through everyone's minds, a voice sounded from the gray mist. Water-style Water Dragon Bullet. A water dragon suddenly appeared from the dust mist and swept towards the two Kagura who had just launched the attack. The water dragon swept across the entire half, and the two Kagura turned into a line of smoke and disappeared the moment they were attacked. Kagura, who was standing in front of the stone wall, seemed to have just reacted. Just when he was about to retreat, the voice appeared behind him again. Earth-style The Art of Beheading in the Heart. At this time, an accident happened again. The moment Sarutobi Hiruzen's hand grabbed Kagura's ankle, the Kagura in front of him suddenly turned into a wisp of smoke and disappeared. This is a shadow clone too. As soon as this thought came to Sarutobi Hiruzen's mind, the ground beneath his feet suddenly cracked. The real Kagura appeared from the collapsed ground, and a hand seal was formed in his hand. Yin, he still wants to use fire style. When Sarutobi Hiruzen saw the handprint clearly, a judgment quickly flashed in his mind. I saw Kagura with a serious face and shouted. The secret of Konoha's secret teleportation technique, 1,000 years of killing. After saying that, he tried his best to stab the chrysanthemum in front of him. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Orochimaru shocked face oh. Silence. The scene was as silent as death. Facts have proven that even a character as strong as the Hokage will temporarily lose combat effectiveness after the chrysanthemum is hit hard. Sarutobi Hiruzen was lying on the ground in a posture with his head on the ground and his butt raised high. Foaming at the mouth, he was obviously unconscious. After Kagura searched him for a while, she finally found the 3 bells. He raised the bell excitedly, enjoying the thrill of victory. The 3 people outside the court looked at each other and finally said, "Well, he beat Sarutobi-sensei, right? That's right, Sarutobi-sensei is already in that posture. But why do I always feel weird? Yes, although he is acting very passionate now. But I can't ignite it at all." Ignoring the 3 people's conversation, Kagura looked excitedly at the notification that the task had been completed in the system. Yes, the ninjutsu he drew that night was the multiple shadow clone technique. Let me explain here, there are some differences between this and shadow clone technique. Its real use is to suddenly create thousands of shadow clone to attack the enemy. However, the requirements for chakra to achieve this effect are extremely abnormal, and it is for this reason that it was included in the ninjutsu forbidden book. For the current Kagura, he can only create 3 shadow clone at most. He knew very well that for Hiruzen Sarutobi, the enemy with the title of Professor Ninjutsu, he could not defeat him at this stage with ordinary ninjutsu. After much deliberation, only ninjutsu, a weird thing like the Millennium Kill, has a chance. So he buried himself underground early in the morning and used 3 shadow clone to attract Sarutobi Hiruzen's attention. He would then give a fatal blow at the last moment. Facts have proved that he succeeded. At this time, he belatedly glanced at Sarutobi Hiruzen who was lying aside. Well, there may be some trouble later. The sun was setting in the west, and the afterglow of the sun that was about to set dyed the mountain forest a layer of orange. On an empty plain in the woods, 2 people were tied to wooden stakes and lowered their heads in despair. It was Jiraiya who failed and Kagura who succeeded. Sarutobi Hiruzen kept rubbing his butt with one hand while preaching to Kagura sadly. Is this what you learned at the Ninja Academy? Ah. If you don't learn so much ninjutsu, what will you learn? Even if you want to learn taijutsu, there are plenty of options. Tell me, did you create this yourself or was it taught to you by some fool teacher? Facing teacher Sarutobi's anger, Kagura couldn't help but shrink her head. Hearing this question, he tried hard to think about it, and then hesitated. Kaido. Yes, Hitoki Sakumo taught me. Nani? Sarutobi Hiruzen tried hard to recall the owner of this name, and a young man with silver hair and a resolute face appeared in his mind. I didn't expect that a seemingly righteous young man would develop such a vicious ninjutsu. Poor Hitoki Sakumo didn't know at this time that because of someone's slander, his impression in Third Hokage's heart had plummeted. In fact, to a certain extent, it is not an insult. Kagura remembered it very clearly, and it was indeed mentioned in the original plot that the 1,000-year kill was invented by Hitoki Sakumo. After he passed it on to Kakashi, it was then carried forward through Kakashi and Naruto. Feeling the faint pain coming from his buttocks, Hiruzen Sarutobi rubbed his brow with a headache. He also tied Kagura to the wooden stake, which was also an act he made out of anger. Now that I think about it carefully, what Kagura did was not wrong. After all, I said at the beginning that no matter what method I use, as long as I can defeat him and get the bell, I will win. It's just that I didn't expect that it would turn over in such a shameful way in the end. Thinking of this, he just put on a straight face and relaxed Kagura. Kagura breathed a sigh of relief when she was finally freed from the stake. Sarutobi Hiruzen's anger was expected, so this short bondage was the lightest punishment he could imagine. Although he won in the end, it didn't mean that he had the ability to fight against shadow-level warriors. Sarutobi Hiruzen did not take this battle seriously from the beginning. It can be seen from the fact that he was still thinking while defeating Tsunade and others. The strength he had always concealed also caused Sarutobi Hiruzen to misassess the difficulty of the battle from the beginning. To put it simply, this success was more due to luck than to strength. Looking at these children in front of him, Sarutobi Hiruzen felt tired for a while, shook his head and said, although Kagura used some means, he finally won. This is the world of ninjas, regardless of the process, only the results are important. Quote. After a pause, he glanced at Jiraiya who was still tied to the stake and continued. As for you three, although Tsunade and Orochimaru still have many shortcomings, I can see their progress. But Jiraiya, you don't have the consciousness to be a ninja at all. Therefore, I announce that Kagura, Tsunade, and Orochimaru passed this assessment. As for you, after saying this, he pointed at Jiraiya and said, as a disqualified person, you will be tied here overnight as punishment. After Hiruzen Sarutobi announced the results, the other three people left directly. Although they were told that they had passed the examination, Tsunade and Orochimaru were not in high spirits when they left. There was no way, the blow Kagura had brought to them today was too great. Today they realized that Kagura never took them seriously at all when they were in school. The slight difference is just my imagination. As for Kagura, he naturally knows the purpose of this assessment after watching the original plot. This is not to verify everyone's strength, but to awaken everyone's team awareness through the assessment of the remaining loser. However, due to his own actions, the current atmosphere has completely changed, and it is difficult for Sarutobi-sensei to continue the original script. In this case, there is no point in staying where you are. It is better to go home early and see the system rewards. Looking at the backs of the three people walking away, Jiraiya lost the momentum of shouting before, and instead looked like a frustrated rooster, with his head lowered. Seeing his depression, Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled and said, "What's wrong? Were you shocked after seeing the true strength of your companions?" Jiraiya replied in a humming voice. That Kagura is so cunning, he actually keeps hiding his strength. And Tsunade and Orochimaru are far more powerful than me. Quote. Looking at the student who had lost confidence, Sarutobi Hiruzen sat down next to him, seeming to recall the past and consoled him. Jiraiya, there is no shortage of geniuses in the world of ninjas. But being a genius doesn't mean you can become a strong person. Quote. After hearing this, Jiraiya finally raised his head, looked at the teacher in front of him and asked. Then how can you become strong? Sarutobi smiled and replied. Hard work, luck, talent. The most important thing is a tough heart. Everyone has their own talents. You don't have to force yourself to compare yourself with others. It's more important to stick to yourself. Quote. Listening to the teacher's encouragement, Jiraiya's eyes slowly regained their luster. He smiled confidently and said proudly, "It's just that I just didn't perform well today. My escape technique is the strongest in Konoha. Every time I go to the bathhouse to use my escape technique to spy on you, I never fail." Looking at the shameless disciple in front of him, Sarutobi Hiruzen twitched the corners of his lips but did not say anything. After a long silence, a voice sounded. Next time, call me when you go to the bathhouse. Quote. Teacher, you are so horny. Shut up. On the way back, Kagura was humming in a good mood. He originally wanted to collect the reward from the system after returning home, but faced with the temptation of the tailed beast, he couldn't wait to click to collect the reward halfway. After pressing confirm in his mind, some strange changes that he imagined did not appear. He turned around and looked at himself carefully, and found that nothing had changed. Finally, when I returned my attention to the system, I discovered the changes in the attributes. Eye technique. Double Magatama Sharingan, progress 14.2%. Physical skills. Fourth gate, Gate of Pain, progress 90.1%. Chakra. Chunin level, progress 42.1%. Tailed beast. One tail, fusion degree 1%. How come this attribute has improved so much? It seems that fighting against a shadow level powerhouse will be of great benefit to your growth. You must know that based on Kagura's previous experience, if you exercise alone, it will take at least 1 to 2 weeks to achieve this level of improvement. The new tailed beast line in the attributes also attracted his attention. One tail. Muttering to himself, he pondered for a while, and then turned his mind to his own body. Just as he expected, after careful investigation, he found that a tailed beast had appeared in his body at some point. Taking a closer look, it was one tail, Shukaku. It's just that it's different from the ferocious form in my impression. The one tail in front of me is completely white. The chubby face looks a bit cute, and it is lying in his body and sleeping soundly. As if feeling Kagura's gaze, it rubbed its eyes with its paws, turned over and continued to sleep. Is this really a tailed beast? It's not a mascot, is it? Several question marks appeared on Kagura's head. It's just that the system won't answer his question, and now he has no way to verify it. In desperation, Kagura had to put this issue aside for the time being. Well, since the tailed beast seems to be somewhat different from what I imagined, let's draw ninjutsu. After all, this is what can actually strengthen yourself. But just when the turntable in the system started, Kagura, who had been walking slowly on the roadside, suddenly stopped. His keen perception told him that there was an enemy. And he is watching me not far away. Takeshi Watanabe, the first-generation member of the Root organization. Although he is only a chunin, he is honored to be chosen as a member of the Root. His ancestors were all ninjas, and they followed the Senju clan a long time ago. After years of fighting during the Warring States period, the war finally came to a halt thanks to Senju Hashirama, an unparalleled genius. When he was a child, he still remembered his parents' heartfelt excitement on the day when Konoha village was announced. But the good times did not last long. With the death of Senju Hashirama, the countries were once again ready to stir up trouble. Soon after, the first ninja war broke out. After returning from a mission, he saw the bodies of his parents covered with white cloth. He didn't cry at that time, because he knew in his heart that this was the fate of ninjas. But from then on, he worked harder to complete each of his tasks. But the cruelty of this war exceeded people's imagination. On the eve of the final piece, the seemingly omnipotent second-generation master actually passed away after being injured in a shameless ambush. After returning to the village, Danzo-sama, who followed that gentleman, decided to inherit his will and establish the Root organization. As a follower of the Senju clan, when Lord Danzo invited him, he joined, without hesitation. We are the guardians under the shadow of Konoha, rooting deep into the darkness. Watanabe Takeshi always remembers this concept that Master Danzo told everyone when he first joined. After joining the organization, he never left the village again. He turned into an eye in the darkness and followed Danzo-sama's instructions to monitor everyone who threatened the village. This afternoon, a mission suddenly came from Lord Danzo. The mission instructed him to monitor a child named Kagura from the Uchiha family starting today. Looking at the 8-year-old boy not far away, although Watanabe Takeshi didn't think that a person of this age could do anything to the village. However, the teachings from the organization still made him determined to carry out his tasks faithfully. Seeing the young man humming songs happily on the road, feeling the joyful atmosphere, a smile appeared on his face unconsciously. But for some reason, the young man suddenly stopped while walking and looked back and forth at his body. After remaining silent for a long time, he suddenly smiled nervously and continued to move forward. Takeshi Watanabe frowned and said it was a juvenile psychotic attack, and continued to perform his tasks. Night had fallen at this time, and the young man didn't seem to be in a hurry to go home, but was wandering around the village. As he wandered, the two gradually came to a remote part of the village. Surveillance is actually a skill. As the surrounding environment changes, it becomes difficult for Watanabe Takeshi to hide. Just when he reached the hiding place of a house from jumping, an accident happened. Just at a crossroads, Watanabe Takeshi felt that just as he blinked, the young man suddenly disappeared from his sight. Surprised, he didn't even bother to hide his figure at this time, and rushed directly to the middle of the intersection. Just as he was looking around in confusion, a voice came from behind him. "Look into my eyes." Shocked, he immediately turned around and saw a pair of Sharingan with double groove jade in his eyes. Move the time back slightly. The moment she realized that she was being watched, Kagura's muscles tightened and she was about to rush in the direction of that gaze. But after a while, he relaxed his body again and still stood where he was. It just so happened that at this moment, the slowly rotating wheel of the system finally stopped. This time the skill he drew turned out to be Distinguished Heavenly Gods. This is ninjutsu, which is known as the strongest genjutsu. When seeing this ninjutsu, Kagura smiled from the bottom of her heart. As soon as his mind changed, he continued walking as if he was not aware of the surveillance. Walking slowly along the road back to the village, Kagura began to think about who was monitoring him. First he ruled out enemies from other countries. At this time, it was just after the First Ninja War, and the defense of the entire village and its surroundings was extremely strict. Otherwise, Sarutobi Hiruzen would not have dared to let the genins gather in the woods outside the village. If it was really an enemy from outside who wanted to invade, it would be impossible to sneak in so silently. It was precisely after thinking about this that Kagura stopped attacking just now. Then if he is someone from Konoha village, then why should he monitor himself? Moreover, I have been in this world for 5 years, why did I just start monitoring myself today? Is there anything different today than usual? Assessment. Exposing strength. The Uchiha clan. After stringing these clues together, he felt that he had discovered the truth. As a genius of the Uchiha clan, his strength far exceeded usual today. That's how it all started. He knew the character of Hiruzen Sarutobi. This third Hokage was more inclined towards education than violent law enforcement. His philosophy on the village is more aligned with Jonju's, so this is unlikely to be an order from him. Moreover, as the direct teacher of Class 7, he himself is the best monitor. There is no need to send such easily discovered people to monitor you. So in the current Konoha village, there is such intelligence capability, and we can understand what happened in the afternoon as soon as possible. There is only one person who is hostile to the Uchiha clan and has the ability to send people to monitor him. Danzo. So the people who come are rooted people. With the advantage of being familiar with the plot, Kagura instantly figured out everything and also knew the identity of the monitor. But the question is, what to do next? Pretending not to know you are being watched. No, he is not an innocent person. If you are monitored for a long time, some of your secrets may not be hidden. Kill the watcher. That's not okay. People are just spying on you, and you kill them. And then tell the higher-ups in Konoha that he is innocent. Then in the end, I may have no choice but to become a rebellious nin and escape from the village. You must know that the reason why you have practiced so hard these years is to avoid being killed by that boy Uchiha Itachi and to survive hard. Now you just become a traitor and are wanted by the whole village. That's really because I don't think I can live a long life. After thinking about it, he had an idea in his mind when he saw the distinguished heavenly gods he had just learned in the system. Then he deliberately walked to a remote place, and under the cover of night, he finally lured the watcher out of the darkness. Look into my eyes. The moment Takeshi Watanabe turned his head, the pair of Magatama Sharingan were reflected in his mind. Looking at the confused enemy in front of him, Kagura couldn't help but sigh at the power of this ninjutsu, distinguished heavenly gods. Even after the author released ninjutsu, he may have felt that it was too buggy and added restrictions to it. If someone else does not possess Senju Hashirama's chakra or Uchiha Shisui himself, even if someone else gets Shisui's eyes, it will take more than 10 years each time they activate this ninjutsu. Of course, this restriction does not exist for Kagura. After thinking about it, Kagura began to control Watanabe's consciousness. In the world of Takeshi Watanabe. After hearing that voice, he immediately turned his head and made a warning gesture. But he never expected that the person standing behind him was Lord Danzo. He quickly put away his shuriken and knelt down on one knee to salute. Duanzo glanced at him and didn't express much, but said calmly, I came here to inform you that the mission has changed. From now on, there is no need to monitor Kagura anymore. You should immediately go to Sarutobi Hiruzen's side and start monitoring his every move. Quote. This. Watanabe showed a confused look. In fact, although it has not been officially announced, everyone in the village knows that Sarutobi Hiruzen will be the new Hokage of Konoha. After all, this is an appointment directly from the previous Senju Tobarama. Danzo said coldly, and continued to say to Takeshi Watanabe. Have you forgotten the promise you made when you joined Root? You don't need to think about why, you just need to faithfully complete the orders I gave you. Quote. Yes, Lord Danzo. The confusion on Watanabe's face disappeared, and he lowered his head and gestured to Danzo in front of him. Looking at Takeshi Watanabe walking away with a look of determination, Kagura once again lamented the power of distinguished heavenly gods. I hope Sarutobi-sensei can understand what I conveyed to him. After completing his arrangement, Kagura took steps forward, hummed a song again, and headed back towards his home. Looking at Watanabe lying at his feet, Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned. After talking to Jiraiya at the trial ground, he returned to the village. Although he has not officially announced that he will become a Hokage, he has actually begun to work as a Hokage. So after taking a day to play with his former apprentice, he had to rush back to the Hokage building in the evening to finish today's work. But as soon as he reached the door of the Hokage building, he felt a surveillance gaze. It has to be said that the newly established root organization does lack strong people. Danzo is naturally aware of this, so among the orders he usually gives to these members, he usually supervises people at the Genin or Chunin level. But he didn't expect that Kagura, who was only 8 years old, was stronger than he imagined and could easily discover his arrangement. Since even Kagura can detect it, then Hiruzen Sarutobi as Hokage will definitely not be worse than him. If Takeshi Watanabe is still sane, he will naturally know that he cannot monitor people of this level. But under the influence of distinguished heavenly gods, he automatically ignored this. After noticing that gaze, Sarutobi Hiruzen did not hesitate and immediately launched an attack. It was just that he subconsciously withdrew his strength when attacking, so Watanabe Takeshi was only knocked unconscious by him at this time, instead of blood splattering on the spot. Seeing the appearance of the monitor, Hiruzen Sarutobi quickly found a matching appearance from his memory. This person should be named Watanabe Takeshi, a Chunin from Konoha village. And he was very sure that this person had joined the root organization. You know, Danzo's establishment of root was with his acquiescence. As for the list of the first batch of people who entered it, Sarutobi Hiruzen personally checked it. At this time, the guards guarding the Hokage building finally came out. Seeing the fallen person at the feet of Sarutobi Hiruzen, the expressions of several people changed. Sarutobi Hiruzen waved his hands to everyone and said calmly, "Send this person to the root, and Danzo will naturally understand what happened." In the office of the Hokage building, Sarutobi Hiruzen and Danzo sat opposite each other, with a steaming cup of tea in front of each. After Danzo came in, the two of them maintained an eerie silence. At this time, Danzo was still young, not wrapped in gauze, nor did he deliberately put away an arm. Although there is an X-shaped scar on his chin, it still does not affect his handsome face. As a man who has the ability to compete with Hiruzen Sarutobi for the position of Hokage, he has a calm aura. It can be said that if it were not for second Hokage Senju Tobarama's personal appointment, he may not be able to replace Sarutobi Hiruzen as the third Hokage. In the end, Danzo was the first to speak and break the silence. "I never gave you an order to spy on you." After a pause, he continued. "You and I know very well that if I really had this idea, I would not send such a character here. The only person who could come here to perform this kind of task could be me." Quote. Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded in agreement. He picked up the teacup in front of him and took a slow sip before speaking. "I know, but I would also like to know what the original mission you assigned to Takeshi Watanabe was." Quote. Looking at Sarutobi Hiruzen in silence for several seconds, Danzo finally chose to confess. "The person I originally asked him to monitor was Uchiha Kagura." Uchiha Kagura, murmured in his mouth. Sarutobi Hiruzen thought about the meaning of these words. In an instant, he understood many things. He laughed out loud, shook his head helplessly and said, "It seems that you still have a lot of people around me. Uchiha Kagura just revealed her strength in the afternoon, and you can take action so quickly." Quote. Danzo still remained calm and explained, "You must have misunderstood something. There are indeed my people around you, but their mission is not to monitor you. After all, people who come from the root will eventually become Anbu. They are just sent by me to protect you. After all, from a practical point of view, you will be the third Hokage of Konoha village." Quote. Hearing this, Hiruzen Sarutobi put down his water glass, looked into Danzo's eyes and said, "Then I'm afraid your disdain for Uchiha Kagura is not a misunderstanding." Danzo said without denying, "Yes, you should know the horror of Uchiha better than I do. Even someone like Tobirama-sama never dared to lower his guard against the Uchiha clan. I don't think there is anything wrong with monitoring the younger generation with outstanding abilities. Quote. The problem is you failed. Sarutobi Hiruzen stood up, supported the table with both hands, looked at Danzo from a bird's eye view and said. Although I don't know how that kid Kagura did it. But the person you sent to monitor him was fooled by his genjutsu and came to me. This is his expression of goodwill and dissatisfaction. Not killing the man showed that he still had good intentions towards the village. Driving people to me is expressing his dissatisfaction. Quote. He stared seriously into Danzo's eyes and warned. If you can do it without letting him find out, that's all. But since he has the ability to discover, stop what you are doing. I don't want a potential future where your personal suspicions are pushed against Konoha. Quote. Danzo frowned and still wanted to retort. But. No buts. Mito-sama had seen that Kagura with his own eyes during the graduation ceremony yesterday. Mito-sama believed that the boy was no threat to Konoha. You should be well aware of Mito-sama's abilities. Quote. Even Danzo couldn't help but fell silent when he heard the name Uzumaki Mito, who had dedicated his life to Konoha. Sarutobi Hiruzen left the table and came to the window. Staring at the leaf village under the night sky, he spoke again. Danzo, I understand your determination to protect the village. But blindly using dark means will not allow the village to develop. Times have changed, and I firmly believe that Konoha can fly better under the sun. Quote. Danzo left. Although he didn't say anything in the end, he acquiesced in Sarutobi Hiruzen's decision. Looking at the backs of his former companions hidden in the dark night, Hiruzen Sarutobi felt more and more the difficulty of becoming a Hokage. Sarutobi-sensei. Suddenly, a voice pulled him back from his thoughts. When he turned around, he saw that the person coming was Tsunade. It turned out that after today's test, Tsunade felt distressed for the first time about her weak strength. After going home and thinking for a long time, she decided to come over to see the teacher and ask about the future training direction. She was well aware of Sarutobi Hiruzen's daily schedule and headed directly towards the Hokage building. Due to her special background, the famous Tsunade Heim walked to Hokage's office without any hindrance. Just as soon as I entered the door, I saw that the teacher was not sitting at the table handling official duties as usual, but standing by the window in a daze. Looking at the obedient apprentice in front of him, Sarutobi Hiruzen showed a smile and said Kaido. Oh, nothing. I just dealt with some troubles with that kid Uchiha Kagura. Quote. Uchiha Kagura. Upon hearing this name, Tsunade's eyes suddenly brightened. She quickly grabbed Sarutobi-sensei's sleeve and asked. What's wrong with that idiot? We must have caused some trouble again. Looking at Tsunade who suddenly became excited in front of him, Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes flashed with vigilance, and he thought of a possibility. Although he personally has no prejudice against Uchiha, if Tsunade and Uchiha represent the Senju clan, that boy really has something. Then I'm afraid that this Hokage will cause a lot of trouble. He looked Tsunade up and down and asked directly. Tsunade, why do you seem so interested in that boy Kagura? Do you like him? Unexpectedly, Teacher Sarutobi would ask so directly, and a flush appeared on Tsunade's face. She forcefully shook off Sarutobi Hiruzen's sleeves and said in a panic. Old teacher, what did you say? How could I fall in love with that kind of idiot? I just don't like that arrogant boy, he always looks down on others. And as an opponent in the same class, isn't it normal to want to surpass a strong opponent? I didn't pay special attention to him. I was a little stammering at first, but later I seemed to find an excuse for myself. The more I spoke, the more confident I became. After hearing Tsunade's explanation, Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded with satisfaction. So this is all. He finally let go of his worries. Therefore, never expect a middle-aged man to understand a girl's thoughts. If it were Uzumaki Mito here at this time, he would be able to see the clues at a glance. The heart of my granddaughter. I'm afraid it no longer belongs to me. I'm 50 meters southeast and already in position. Received, I'm at the site and can start at any time. Very well, Orochimaru, follow my orders and charge forward together. 3, 2, 1, rush. As Kagura spoke the last word, two black shadows sprang out from the sudden tree and rushed towards the target not far away. Meow. As a shrill meow sounded, a huge black cat appeared in Kagura's arms. The cat was still struggling, trying to escape from Kagura's control. Holding the cat's neck with his right hand, Kagura just caught it in midair. As if some kind of switch had been turned on, the cat that had been struggling just now suddenly became quiet. Carefully place the target on the handle into the prepared cage. The 4 people in Class 7 breathed a sigh of relief in unison. Yes, they are on a mission. 3 weeks have passed since that assessment. As genin, they are ready to begin their mission. However, for novices like them, at this stage they can only receive D-level tasks such as helping people find cats. During this time, Hiruzen Sarutobi would occasionally come over and lead them on tasks together. But more often than not, it's just the 4 of them. Whenever this happens, the other 3 will default to Kagura as the team leader and direct the execution plan of the mission. After looking at the restless cat in the cage, Kagura looked at the communicator in his hand and became stunned. Speaking of which, this world is really amazing. You can say that its technology is backward, but it also has a short-distance communicator like this. At least within a range of 1,000 meters, the effect of this thing is impeccable. But do you think it is technologically advanced? Let alone cars, there are not even bicycles here. No wonder all the ninjas here run so fast, and they are all forced to do it. Just when Kagura was thinking wildly, Tsunade interrupted his thoughts with a voice. Okay, target capture is completed. Let's go back and hand in the task quickly. Quote. They had long been accustomed to Kagura's sudden days from time to time when they were in the ninja school. And this is why Tsunade always calls him a fool. Returning to the task handover point, after the original owner confirmed that what they had captured was indeed their lost pet, the 3 of them finally completed their task. Looking at the old woman whose face was as thick as a white wall, she was holding the poor cat and rubbing it constantly. A kind of pity inevitably arose in the hearts of the 4 of them. No wonder the cat ran away. Tsunade put her hands up and stretched. Kagura took a peek from the side. It is indeed still a washboard. Tsunade, who was unaware of Kagura's thoughts, looked at the 3 of them and said. Today's tasks are all completed, so there is nothing else to do next. Not as good as, let's have a party at Kagura's house tonight. Since they tried his cooking skills at Kagura's house, the 3 of them have shown enough initiative to go to Kagura for dinner. There is no way around it, in this world where even a bowl of ramen is considered a rare delicacy. The cooking skills brought by Kagura inherited from ancient China have undoubtedly opened the door to a new world for them. Hearing Tsunade's suggestion, Orochimaru silently nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Tsunade waved her hand and prepared to lead everyone to the vegetable market. Hello, you have absolutely no intention of asking the parties involved for their opinions, right? Kagura looked at the 2 of them helplessly and thought to herself. Unexpectedly, Jiraiya, who always took the initiative at this time, said to everyone. I won't go this time. I have something to do later, so I'll leave first. Quote. After saying that, he waved and left without waiting for anyone else to react. Looking at Jiraiya's retreating figure, Tsunade said strangely. What happened to Jiraiya recently? Every time he rushes to leave as soon as he finishes a task, I always feel that he seems to be very busy recently. Quote. As if thinking of something, she clenched her fists, narrowed her eyes maliciously, and said in a strange tone. Isn't he going to the bathhouse to spy again? Feeling the dangerous aura emanating from Tsunade, Kagura and Orochimaru couldn't help but take a step back. In fact, when everyone was still in the ninja school, one time Jiraiya hooked up with Orochimaru and wanted him to go to the women's bathhouse to spy on him. Unfortunately, Tsunade was in that bathhouse that time. Kagura only knew that Jiraiya had 6 ribs broken by Tsunade, both wrists were broken, and several internal organs were ruptured. The serious injury required him to recuperate at home for nearly 2 months before recovering. Just when Tsunade raised her legs to follow, Kagura quickly opened her mouth and explained to Jiraiya. I knew what he was going to do. I heard that after that day, he asked Sarutobi-sensei about the summoning technique. But when he tried the summoning technique, he was reverse summoned to a strange place. He's been going there every day lately to learn new ninjutsu and techniques. Quote. Kagura, who is familiar with skills, naturally knew that the so-called strange place was Mount Myoboku. It can be said that there is an important turning point for Jiraiya to grow into the future, Sannin. After hearing Kagura's explanation, Tsunade also stopped, looked back at Kagura and said doubtfully. You mean, that Jiraiya has been busy practicing recently? Kagura nodded hurriedly. It's strange to say that, maybe it's because Kagura is familiar with the personalities of these three, or maybe he really has an affinity with them. After forming Team 7, Kagura actually became the person with the best relationship with everyone among them. Including Jiraiya's recent encounters, he also took the initiative to mention it to Kagura. After hearing about Jiraiya's hard training, Tsunade glanced in the direction of Jiraiya who had already gone away in confusion. Orochimaru's eyes flashed with an inexplicable light. In Mount Myoboku, a slightly stern voice sounded. Jiraiya, are you an idiot? Fire-style fire bullet is such a basic ninjutsu and you can't even learn it. Quote. Jiraiya was trying hard to puff up his cheeks on a flat ground, but after some preparation, he finally spit out a mouthful of black petroleum-like liquid. Idiot, when you refine chakra into oil and spit it out, you have to use fire style to ignite it. Do you even know what fire style is? A furious voice came from the boulder on the side, and the speaker was actually a toad that was jumping up and down. Hearing this, Jiraiya in the field touched the back of his head with his hand in embarrassment. Fortunately, at this moment, another toad jumped in. The new toad looked up at Jiraiya, and then said, Jiraiya, come with me. Our great toad sage wants to see you. Quote. Great toad sage. Hearing this title, Jiraiya was stunned for a moment. But he didn't say anything more, but followed the toad silently. I came here by mistake 2 weeks ago, after helping Wentai drive away a big snake. In order to repay themselves, these toads offered to help them practice. Although he was scolded a bit miserably in the process, Jiraiya did feel that his strength had grown during this period. So for this sudden invitation, he followed it without any hesitation. As the scenery on both sides continued to change, not long after, he came to a palace. At the top of this magnificent palace, there was a particularly huge toad that looked very old. The toad leading the way bowed respectfully towards the top and said, Great toad sage, this is Jiraiya. After saying that, it retreated on its own. While Jiraiya was still observing the great toad sage, the giant toad took the initiative and said, Are you the human who accidentally broke into Mount Myoboku not long ago? Jiraiya didn't know what it meant, so he could only nod numbly. Toad Sage looked him up and down and spoke again. It is indeed the same as the human being I saw in my dream. You are the one chosen by destiny. Quote, in a dream, chosen by fate. Hearing its words, Jiraiya felt confused. Toad Sage saw this and explained. As Toad Sage of Mount Myoboku, I have the power of prophecy. A long time ago, I once spied that a human boy would come to Mount Myoboku. And that person is you. You will become an outstanding ninja in the future. When you become independent, you will start traveling and writing books. In the process, you will accept apprentices. This apprentice will bring changes to the world. Who knows that this change will bring stability to the world? Having said this, Toad Sage, who had been squinting his eyes, suddenly opened his eyes vigorously. Jiraiya, who was listening with great interest and immersed in the described future, was startled by the sudden sentence of national essence. He ignored Jiraiya who had a strange look on his face below him. Toad Sage murmured in disbelief. Why, I feel, this is impossible. The wheel of fortune has changed. Chapter 11. Ignoring the surprised Jiraiya below, Toad Sage continued to talk to himself. The destined decisive battle was brought forward. The children of prophecy have changed. No, the child of prophecy is still involved with the human being in front of him. Brunette, Sharingan, that's Uchiha. Toad Sage's voice became smaller and smaller, and Jiraiya was asked out of the palace with confusion. Looking back at Toad Sage's palace, he frowned and recalled the last few words he said. Are you involved with me? Black hair. It's a pity that because Toad Sage's voice was getting quieter and quieter at that time, he didn't hear the last few words at all. After thinking for a while, he shook his head helplessly and stopped thinking about these problems. The most important thing for me now is to practice hard, and I can't be left far away by my companions in Class 7. Thinking of his goal, he walked towards the training ground full of expectations. At this time, I had no idea that in Toad Sage's prophecy, the protagonist had become the so-called son of the prophecy. Uchiha Kagura herself was lying on the floor of the living room in a large shape. Perhaps because of the stimulation brought about by hearing Jiraiya's hard training, the originally planned dinner party was cancelled. After that, Tsunade and Orochimaru walked towards different places with solemn expressions. Well, they are all young people who refuse to admit defeat. Youth is good. Seeing this situation, Kagura, who was only 8 years old, rubbed her chin and sighed. It is precisely because of this that we saw the scene of Kagura lying on the floor paralyzed. But readers, please don't misunderstand, he is not lazy at this time, but practicing. Yes, he is training with the white one-tail Shukaku inside his body. After discovering that there is an extra one-tail Shukaku in his body, after several days of testing, he has found a way to communicate with it. At this time, he was constantly tearing the chakra of his body into small pieces and feeding them to the one tail in his body. Shukaku exuded joy as if he had eaten his favorite food. That breath slowly turned into energy and fed back into Kagura's body again. Kagura would use her mind to scratch Shukaku's chin or stroke his back from time to time. Shukaku obviously enjoyed this kind of caressing. He closed his eyes in contentment and his tail waggled happily behind him. Affected by its happy mood, the surrounding atmosphere became strong again. Kagura felt as if the chakra in her body had been quenched, becoming stronger at a speed visible to the naked eye. In fact, this was not his illusion. The system's property display told him that it was indeed effective. After several weeks of quenching, his chakra has progressed from Chunin level to 42.1%. It has become the current level Chunin level and the progress is 76.8%. The speed can be described as leaps and bounds. If he were allowed to practice on his own, he would not be able to reach this height in just a few months. The data in the Tailed Beast column has also been greatly improved. Tailed Beast. 1 tail, fusion degree 35%, turn on Tailed Beast outer form. Kagura, the Tailed Beast coat, naturally knew what it meant. And compared with the Jinchuriki of this world, his biggest advantage is that he doesn't need to resist the evil thoughts from the Tailed Beasts at all. Looking at the cute beast rolling around happily in his body, Kagura thought to herself that it was no different from raising an electronic pet, so where could the evil thoughts come from? Taking a long breath, Kagura sat up on the floor. Today's Tailed Beast training ends here. In fact, recently he has felt that this method of cultivation seems to have entered a gentle period. In the past few days, the fusion progress of both chakra and Tailed Beasts has begun to slow down. Picking up a glass of water on the table and drinking it in one gulp, Kagura breathed a long sigh of relief and came to the window, thinking about her next goal. After traveling to the Uchiha clan, he always felt a shadow of death hanging over him. This shade isn't entirely from the future Uchiha Itachi. After all, there are still 30 years left, although the annihilation of the Itachi clan feels somewhat like a plot killing. After all, if you think about it carefully, how could a teenager who was only a teenager possibly wipe out the entire Uchiha clan without any damage on his own? But if you think about it deeply, the entire genocide plan was actually carried out under the arrangement of the third Hokage and Danzo. Then it all makes sense. So if you want to escape the fate of genocide, the key is not to be stronger than Uchiha Itachi, the person who is put in the front desk, but to have a strong enough strength to compete with the top management of Konoha village, represented by Sarutobi and Danzo. This is the goal that Kagura needs to pursue. After possessing the Tailed Beast, Kagura felt confident for the first time. But, thinking about it from another aspect, I may not have any other conspiracy to change all this if I am familiar with the plot. As long as some of the key plots are destroyed, the Uchiha clan will no longer be discriminated against. Then the Uchiha clan no longer has any thoughts of rebellion, and the reason why the third Hokage must eradicate Uchiha will naturally disappear. As for the bigger conspiracy behind it, about Uchiha Madara, Black Zetsu and even the resurrection of Otsutsuki Kagaya, he doesn't want to pay attention to it now. The boss should be left to the protagonists like Naruto and Sasuke to face. What does it have to do with you? Thinking of this, he lay on the bed with peace of mind and fell into sleep comfortably. At this time, he didn't know that it was not long ago today. The so-called protagonist he was determined to have unknowingly changed due to his time travel. And the decisive battle that he thought was at least 40 years away would be brought forward because of this. A night without words. The next morning, the 4 people from Class 7 gathered in front of the mission receiving area again. But this time except Kagura, the other 3 people all looked tired and yawned. It seemed like they all worked hard to practice yesterday. Looking at the appearances of the people in front of him, Kagura sighed again. Shrugging his shoulders, as the captain, he consciously walked up to the staff and asked about today's task. The front desk clerk looked up at them and then said, "Oh, he's from Class 7 this year. You don't need to pick up the mission here today. You can go directly to the Hokage building later. Sarutobi Hiruzen-sama has a mission to give directly to you." Quote. After hearing this, several people looked at each other in confusion. I didn't hear Sarutobi-sensei say anything about this yesterday. Seeing everyone's doubts, the staff member smiled and said, "Oh, this was an impromptu arrangement this morning. Go quickly, Master Sarutobi has been waiting there for a long time." Quote. After hearing this, the few people stopped asking any more questions and hurriedly walked towards the Hokage building. In the office of the Hokage building, Sarutobi Hiruzen showed a smile as he looked at the 4 most beloved disciples in front of him. In fact, in another week, he will officially serve as the 3rd Hokage, and his work has become increasingly busy recently. This also left him with almost no time to lead these students to perform tasks. But fortunately, I heard from others that these 4 people have recently completed the assigned tasks perfectly. This makes me, as their teacher, very satisfied. Throwing the mission scroll in his hand in front of Kagura, who was standing at the front, he gestured with his eyes to Kagura to open it. Kagura pulled off the rope on the scroll and began to examine it carefully. Sarutobi Hiruzen explained. "This time you are going to take on a B-level mission, and you need to go outside the village to perform the mission. Moreover, I will lead the team this time." After carefully reading the mission introduction on the scroll, Uchiha Kagura frowned. The mission content is very simple. It is to protect a wealthy businessman to the kingdom of Whirlpool. In terms of the reward and difficulty of the task, there is really no problem with it being a B-level task. The question is why Hiruzen Sarutobi personally led the team. Even without him asking specifically, he knew that Hiruzen Sarutobi would officially assume the position of the 3rd Hokage in the near future. At such a critical period, is a B-level mission worthy of being carried out by a Hokage personally? Even if the reason is to take care of his own students, it doesn't make sense. Handing the completed mission scroll to the 3 people behind him, Kagura did not hide her doubts at all and looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen in front of her. Sarutobi Hiruzen understood Kagura's question at a glance. He said directly, "I will be officially announced as a Hokage next week, and the reason why I go to the country of Whirlpool with you this time is precisely for this reason." "Did you go to the land of Whirlpool because you were about to become the Hokage?" Kagura thought for a moment and instantly understood the meaning of Sarutobi-sensei's words. During the period of Senju Hashirama, the kingdom of Whirlpool was a loyal ally of the kingdom of Fire. Among them, the Uzumaki clan and the Senju clan have cooperated many times since the Warring States period. When Senju Hashirama captured each tailed beast, it was also the great elder of the Uzumaki clan who helped him seal the captured tailed beasts. Otherwise, how could Senju Hashirama successfully sell this unstable power to the major ninja villages? Even later, in order to better control Nine Tails, Uzumaki Mito, the wife of the first-generation Hokage, volunteered to become the first-generation Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Now, it is a logical move for Sarutobi Hiruzen, who is about to become Hokage, to go to the country of Whirlpool as an ambassador. This is just like the Blue Star where Kagura was originally located. Generally, newly appointed national leaders always need to visit friendly countries as soon as possible to show a friendly attitude. As for why we should go before becoming Hokage instead of going out after taking office. Unlike Naruto's era, the situation in the current era is still in a state of chaos. Although armistice agreements have been signed between various villages, there are still undercurrents surging underneath. If there is a chance to kill a shadow-level person, I believe many people will choose to try. Second-generation Tobirama also fell because of this. Therefore, Going to the Kingdom of Whirlpool as a Hokage and going to the Kingdom of Whirlpool as Hiruzen Sarutobi have completely different meanings. To put it bluntly, even if Sarutobi Hiruzen died on the road, it would not have a huge impact on Konoha's morale. Seeing Kagura's instantly understanding expression, Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded happily. Tsunade and Orochimaru behind them also understood the meaning after watching the mission and hesitating for a while. Only Jiraiya scratched the back of his head with one hand and said naively, "Teacher, if you want to be Hokage, what does it have to do with performing missions with us?" Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he said confidently, "I understand, you are worried that after becoming a Hokage, you will never be able to go out with us again. So this time, you purposely accompanied us on our last field mission before taking our positions, right?" After finishing speaking, he looked at the teacher proudly, as if expecting the teacher's praise. Sarutobi Hiruzen twitched the corners of his lips, and finally took back the words he wanted to curse. He turned his head and looked aside and ordered everyone, "Okay, you go back and clean up quickly, and gather at the village gate at noon. We'll leave at noon today." Quote, the dazzling sun hung in the middle of the sky. At the gate of Konoha village, the 4 people who were prepared were already waiting there. Kagura wears a combat uniform similar to that of Jonin, except that he wears a purple vest and carries a black backpack on the back. At this time, he was hiding under the shade of a tree with others, kicking stones with his feet in boredom. Like him, the other 3 also had an extra backpack in their outfits than usual. Fortunately, they did not wait too long. After a while, the figures of Sarutobi Hiruzen and another person gradually appeared in everyone's sight. What followed Sarutobi-sensei was the target they needed to protect this time. The image of this man completely fits Kagura's imagination of the word, rich businessman. Wearing a purple coat that seemed to be made of inexpensive silk, the slightly tight clothes highlighted his fat figure. At this time, he was holding a handkerchief and wiping the sweat from his head. It was obvious that he was very hot. Seeing the 4 people, the wealthy businessman was stunned for a moment. Then he showed a kind smile and nodded to everyone. Sarutobi Hiruzen gave a brief introduction to the customers, then turned to the wealthy businessman and said politely, "Mr. Fuchuin, time is urgent. Thank you for your hard work along the way." Quote. Then, without waiting for Fuchuin to respond, he said to everyone, "Set off." As the team started to set off, Kagura's face showed a hint of excitement. In addition to the fact that this was the first time he left the village since time traveling, it was also due to the mission prompt he received from the system not long ago. Mission. Complete a B-level mission. Mission reward. You can randomly draw a ninjutsu and understand it. Quote. Ever since he drew the skill-distinguished heavenly gods last time, he has been looking forward to what heaven-defying ninjutsu he can draw from the system next time. Like Kagura, Tsunade and others left the village for the first time. Along the way, they were full of curiosity about everything around them. After walking along the established road for a long time, they finally walked out of the woods outside the village. Some human villages gradually appeared along the way. It's just that unlike Konoha village, most of these villages look very dilapidated. Most of the villagers walking during this period were in ragged clothes, with numb eyes, and were doing the work at hand like zombies. Seeing this situation, everyone who seemed slightly excited at first gradually became silent. Feeling that the atmosphere in the team had become cold, Sarutobi Hiruzen said, "The days of peace are too short." Although Lord Hashirama's efforts ended the chaos of the Warring States period. Unfortunately, this peace only lasted for about 10 years. After the First Ninja War broke out, these ordinary villagers had no ability to resist, and naturally they were unable to develop. Quote. Kagura nodded secretly in agreement. In fact, even among the 5 major ninja villages, Konoha village is considered a unique existence. After all, when the village was built, Konoha village had rich funds from the beginning, relying on the money Senju Mahu got from selling the tailed beasts. If you don't see the environment of Hidden Sand Village, you can only survive in a desert. If given the choice, who would build a village in such a place? Traveling on the road is always boring, especially when there are not many scenery worth admiring along the way. To Kagura's surprise, the fat man named Fuchuin was not much slower than them along the way. But after thinking about it carefully, I figured it out. After all, as a businessman, I am probably used to this daily rush. As everyone's steps became heavier, the sun unknowingly stopped on the distant mountains. The afterglow shone on everyone, pulling out a long black shadow behind them. At this time, they had passed through the village and entered a new forest. While walking, Kagura at the front suddenly stopped. If you stand in front of him, you can see that his eyes have changed into a Sharingan state. Staring at the dark woods ahead, he suddenly made a gesture behind him. Tsunade and the other 3 people who followed him and stayed in place suddenly tightened their expressions after seeing that gesture. The body turned into a black shadow, and the 3 of them arrived at Fuchuin in an instant, guarding him in a pin shape. In the previous weeks of running in, the 4 of them had already developed some gestures to facilitate their use when performing tasks. The gesture Kagura just made means, an enemy appears. Although no one was seen around at this time, it was out of trust in Kagura. After he made that gesture, the 3 of them immediately took out their weapons and stood beside Fuchuin in a combat posture. Sarutobi Hiruzen, who was standing aside, was standing with his arms folded, as if he was staying out of the incident. Seeing this situation, everyone knew that Teacher Sarutobi had no intention of taking the initiative this time. Kagura took out the kunai from her waist and stared straight ahead. The scene fell into silence for a moment, but fortunately this silence did not last long. A voice sounded from the forest. "You little devil. Can you actually find us?" As if receiving an order, as the voice sounded, figures appeared from the forest. The faces of Tsunade and the other 2 people became a little nervous, because at this time, nearly dozens of figures walked out of the forest one after another. These people were all wearing a set of gray ninja tights, and their faces were covered tightly by a black mask, revealing only a pair of hungry wolf-like eyes. The person who spoke just now should be their leader. At this time, he was standing on the tree, looking down at the people below. He frowned and continued, "These eyes. I see, are you the Uchiha brat? No wonder they found us." Quote, at this time, dozens of figures under him had slowly surrounded Kagura and others. Kagura raised her head and carefully observed the leader who was speaking, and found that there was no sign of the ninja village on his body, so he knew that these were the so-called Ryu ninja. Since the ninja village at this time was not long established, in addition to the 5 major ninja villages, there were many ninjas who did not belong to them. They are each gathered outside the edges of the 5 countries. They have no clear organization or belief, and they mostly rely on being hired or robbed to survive. There is no so-called concession in the battle between ninjas. The moment he saw these people coming out, Kagura knew that this battle was inevitable. He calmly gave the order to the 3 people behind him. "Orochimaru, Jiraiya, you 2 are responsible for the enemies on both sides. Tsunade should not leave Mr. Tamakawa's side and be responsible for protecting him. It's up to me to deal with these enemies in the front." Quote, at this time, there were approximately 30 to 40 enemies on the field, half of whom were directly in front of the team. Apparently Kagura automatically took over the most difficult task. There was silence in the field, and a leaf was blown off by the breeze and slowly drifted down. Just like the beginning of the message, at the moment when the leaf fell to the ground, the 2 sides suddenly transformed into black shadows and rushed towards each other. Orochimaru and Jiraiya have disappeared from the team, and according to Kagura's orders, they take the initiative to attack the enemy. Tsunade held the weapon tightly in her hand and still stood quietly in front of Fuchuin. Firelights flashed in midair, and the sound of swords colliding with each other continued to sound all around. A silver-haired figure suddenly appeared in the air. It was Jiraiya. After quickly forming seals in his hands, his mouth suddenly bulged. Fire-style fire bullet. Several fireballs hit the enemy chasing behind him. The enemies who were hit instantly burst into flames and fell to the ground one after another, screaming. But the principle of this ninjutsu is to hold the oil refined from chakra in your mouth, spit it out and use fire style to burn it at the same time. No matter how crazy those people rolled on the ground, they still couldn't extinguish the flames on their bodies. Seeing that his one blow had such results, Jiraiya couldn't help but have a hint of excitement on his face. But before he landed, several kunai were shot towards his figure. Jiraiya, who was still in midair, had a straight face, but he didn't look panicked. As he formed another seal in his hand, his silver hair suddenly grew longer, wrapping his whole body like a coat. Ninja technique. Needle Jizo. Those hairs were like a hard fortress, rebounding all the kunai flying towards him. The pursuing ninja's eyes flashed, and he immediately took out his long knife and rushed forward. Since you can't break down the defense with long-range kunai, just use melee to attack. Just when several ninjas came to the top of the semicircular hedgehog, Jiraiya's voice came out again. Needle hell. Those hairs as hard as steel needles suddenly shot out like hidden weapons. With a whooshing sound, several ninjas who were about to attack him a second ago fell to the ground covered in blood. On the other side, Orochimaru is facing the same situation as Jiraiya. As soon as he landed from the air, dozens of attacks composed of kunai and shuriken appeared in front of him. Orochimaru formed a seal with one hand, and a strong wind suddenly appeared in front of him. The violent wind blew away the dozens of weapons. Wind escape great breakthrough. It's my turn. He whispered something in his mouth and took out several shurikens from behind. After throwing the shuriken in his hand towards the enemy forcefully, he immediately formed a seal on his hand quickly. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. It was Orochimaru who secretly learned ninjutsu from Sarutobi-sensei. Thousands of shurikens were cloned from those shurikens, and they were attacking the woods in front of them indiscriminately. There were muffled sounds one after another, and the enemies hidden in the woods were shot down to the ground. After doing all this, Orochimaru turned back and looked in Tsunade's direction. Spider web-like cracks appeared around Tsunade. Inside was the enemy who wanted to sneak attack, but she smashed her fist directly into the ground. But she didn't pay attention to the people she knocked down, but was looking ahead in astonishment. Following her line of sight, Orochimaru also looked forward. When he saw the scene happening in front of him, his eyes shrank in shock. In front of them is the battlefield that Kagura has drawn for herself. The leader who spoke earlier and his subordinates had fallen from the tree and stood in front of Kagura. But the strange thing is that until now, those people still maintain their standing posture. No weapons were taken out, and there was no shouting. The entire battlefield was eerily quiet. If you observe carefully, you can find that the eyes of those people are full of confusion. He stood there as if he had been cursed, unable to move. Kagura raised the kunai in her hand and slowly walked through the crowd. Every time he passes a person, his arm holding the weapon will wave an afterimage. Then a line of blood would appear on the man's throat, and with the sound of falling to the ground, blood stained the ground red. Kagura is like a Shinigami holding a sickle, silently harvesting life. The field was filled with a strange atmosphere, and all the enemies were like chickens and ducks queuing up, waiting to be harvested by their master. Not long after, all the enemies on the field except the leader had fallen. Kagura stood in front of him, raising her right hand, trying to kill the last enemy. However, at this time, the leader spoke intermittently. As if he had exhausted all his strength, he said in a voice full of regret and fear. This is genjutsu. Kagura glanced at him in surprise. She didn't expect that the soldier in front of her could escape the control of her genjutsu. Yes, this weird scene happened precisely because he used Sharingan's genjutsu on these people. Although he has distinguished heavenly gods as the most powerful genjutsu in Hokage history. For these miscellaneous soldiers whose level cannot even reach genin, it is not too easy to control them, just rely on Sharingan's own genjutsu. Although Kagura has other ways to defeat these people, this is undoubtedly the most labor-saving way. The leader was obviously stronger than the others, and was able to briefly escape the influence of his genjutsu and speak. But his limit can only go so far. Seeing the unwillingness in his eyes, Kagura rarely spoke to comfort him. If you're to blame, it's your bad luck. In the next life, remember to choose your opponent carefully. Quote. After speaking, he raised his hand. The leader's throat slowly tore open a line of blood, and as a column of blood spurted out, he slowly fell to the ground. Jiraiya, who had just released Jizo, felt a bitter taste in his mouth when he saw the scene in front of him. He had been training hard during this period, and thought he would be able to make a splash in this battle. Let these friends of yours be shocked by your own strength. But, compared with Kagura's operation of blasting the sky, his original excitement of defeating the enemy has long disappeared. Orochimaru's breathing became rapid at this time. Is this the power of Uchiha? Weird, dangerous, but extremely powerful. Amazing, so envious. I really want to. I really want to have it. Slowly, Orochimaru's eyes looked at Kagura full of longing, with a hint of danger shining in them. Feeling Orochimaru's fiery eyes from behind, Kagura felt a chill run through her body. He glanced at Orochimaru secretly, and he secretly warned. This pervert, couldn't he like men? Compared to Orochimaru, Tsunade seemed much calmer after the initial surprise. Only occasionally, there was a hint of admiration in Kagura's eyes. Sarutobi Hiruzen still maintained his posture with his arms crossed. Regarding the Kagura Club Genjutsu, he had already guessed it from the incident of Tsuyoshi Watanabe. Facing Kagura's results, he was not too surprised. After all, this kind of flow ninja, who is at most equal to the strength of genin in Konoha village, defeating them is not something to be proud of. This was precisely the reason why he had no intention of helping from the beginning to the end. In fact, compared to Kagura, he was more satisfied with the progress of Jiraiya and Orochimaru. The fat man in Fuchuin once again took out his handkerchief and wiped the non-existent sweat on his head. Sarutobi Hiruzen can certainly judge the enemy's strength and sit tight. But for an ordinary person like him, the battle just now seemed a bit exciting. With the fall of the leader, the battle came to an end. According to the ninja rules, they began to deal with the scene. They didn't feel it when they fought just now, but when they faced the bloody corpses, the four of them felt a kind of physical discomfort. After roughly disposing of all the corpses, Tsunade couldn't help but vomited while holding on to a tree. The faces of the other people also changed to varying degrees. Even Orochimaru, the future great pervert, became extremely pale. After giving his disciples some time, Sarutobi Hiruzen said, "Okay, get ready, let's leave quickly." Due to this episode, most of the setting sun in the distance in the sky has been hidden below the horizon. The afterglow has turned dark red, the darkness in the forest has begun to fill, and everyone understands that night is coming. Fortunately, everyone originally planned to camp in this forest for one night. Before it got completely dark, they finally found a suitable spot and built a fire. At this time, Sarutobi Hiruzen was curiously watching Kagura busy. On the temporary wooden frame, a large pot was hanging. Kagura is constantly pouring various ingredients and spices into it. After a while, a strong fragrance wafted out of the pot. Kagura filled a bowl with a spoon first and handed it to Sarutobi Hiruzen with respectful hands. Looking at the appetizing ingredients in the bowl and smelling the constantly wafting aroma, Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. He couldn't wait to take a bite, and a taste he had never experienced before filled his entire mouth. The meat was cooked just right, and the flavors of the spices were harmonious with each other. As he swallowed, he felt a warm current slowly spread from his stomach to all parts of his body. Tsunade and the other three obviously knew about Kagura's excellent craftsmanship, and before Kagura could do anything, they rushed to put the food in the pot. For a moment, there was only a slight sound of chewing. Even Tamakawa half-jokingly suggested to Kagura after eating a few bowls that if one day he no longer wanted to be a ninja, he could collaborate with him to open a restaurant. He swore in the name of the god of commerce that this would definitely make a lot of money. Kagura was noncommittal about Fuchuan's proposal. In fact, he couldn't make any delicacies in the wild, and what he saw in front of him was just an ordinary pot of beef stewed with potatoes. Just put in some spices that he has researched over the years. After eating and drinking enough, the fatigue of traveling during the day finally eased a lot. Looking at Jiraiya beside him, Orochimaru suddenly asked Sarutobi Hiruzen, "Sarutobi-sensei, can we also learn the psychic summoning technique?" Obviously, Jiraiya's previous display of strength made Orochimaru also have a certain interest in necromancy. Looking around, looking at Tsunade and Kagura who were equally interested, Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled Kaido. Of course, necromancy is actually just a C-level ninjutsu. Anyone can try to summon their own psychic creature as long as they learn how to do so. Of course, psychic techniques are also divided into two types, summoning props and summoning psychic beasts. With that said, he directly channeled his psychic object in front of everyone. As a plume of smoke rose, a muscular ape wearing a ninja uniform and holding a stick appeared in front of everyone. After the ape appeared, he looked around, looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen and said, "Hey, old man, why did you come out to me?" It doesn't look like there's a fight here. Quote. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled sheepishly. Kaido. Sorry, I'm giving a demonstration to my disciples. Please make a trip. Quote. Hearing the answer, the ape rolled his eyes. A puff of white smoke rose again, and it disappeared before everyone's eyes. Looking at the scene in front of them, Kagura and others looked curious. Sarutobi Hiruzen continued. The first time you use psychic magic, if there is a psychic beast that is willing to respond to your summons, it will appear directly in front of you. As long as you are willing to use your blood to sign a contract with it, you can directly summon the psychic beast that signed a contract with you next time. In fact, many families have their own fixed psychic beasts. For example, our Sarutobi clan basically signs a contract with the monkey demon. Quote. Fixed psychic beast. Kagura tried her best to recall, and then asked Sarutobi Hiruzen. Sarutobi-sensei, then why doesn't the Uchiha clan seem to have any fixed psychic beast? Hearing Kagura's question, Hiruzen Sarutobi glanced at him meaningfully, and then said. That's because historically the Uchiha clan didn't need to sign a contract at all. In the later stage, Uchiha relied on his powerful pupil technique to basically forcibly control all summoned psychic beasts. Your ancestor, the famous Uchiha Madara, whose psychic beast was 9 tails. So there was a rule in the ninja world. Never summon a psychic beast in front of the Uchiha clan. Quote. Hearing this, the other people cast envious glances at Kagura. Kagura's expression changed, and she secretly wondered why she almost forgot this setting. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at everyone, changed the topic and said. Okay, if you also want to try necromancy, you can try it now. With me here, there won't be any problems. Quote. Hearing this, everyone except Jiraiya showed expressions of eagerness to try. After a short period of study, Kagura and others easily learned the techniques of necromancy. With Tsunade and Orochimaru looking nervous, the two of them tried their first psychic summoning. As 2 lines of smoke rose, a small creature appeared in front of them. Looking at the 2 psychic beasts, Kagura looked like this. A small Katsuyu with blue and white patterns appeared in front of Tsunade. At this time, it was slowly crawling on Tsunade's palm. There is no nausea like ordinary slugs, and the Katsuyu in front of you gives people a docile and cute feeling. Tsunade excitedly held it up with both hands, placed it in front of her eyes and observed it carefully. On Orochimaru's side, a small white snake appeared. Orochimaru also gently picked up the little snake. The little snake spit out the letter and leaned against his palm. Seeing that both companions had successfully summoned their own psychic beasts, Kagura was eager to give it a try. Although Sarutobi-sensei just said that the Uchiha clan does not actually need to have psychic beasts. But when he thought about the future fight, Sannin closed his hand seals and 3 behemoths appeared. But he still has to find someone to borrow a psychic beast temporarily to appear. That is really low. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated and quickly made his handprints and patted the ground. Bang! The smoke gradually dispersed, slowly revealing its true appearance. However, when everyone present saw the summoned object clearly, they were all shocked. As the smoke dissipated, everyone finally saw Kagura's summons. However, when the true identity of the items was revealed, everyone was shocked. Because what appeared in front of Kagura at this time was an egg. That's right, it's an egg. The egg is as big as a human head and is as white as jade, glowing faintly in the dim environment. With the appearance of this egg, everyone at the scene showed different expressions. Sigma OJO. DODO. Ya lower half circle ya. Ha ha ha. Finally it was Jiraiya's loud voice that broke the silence. He held his belly with one hand, pointed at the egg with the other and laughed. Ha ha ha, you, Kagura, you actually summoned an egg. Killing me. Ha 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 ha. Listening to Jiraiya's wanton laughter, Kagura slowly narrowed her eyes into a pair of dead fish eyes. Just when Jiraiya wanted to say something else, Kagura said, "If you laugh again, I will beat you." Very plain tone, but very effective. When he felt that Kagura was not joking, Jiraiya immediately stopped laughing. After all, the scene of the battle during the day was still fresh in his mind, and he didn't want to be stopped in place by Kagura using genjutsu and then get beaten up. That weird way of control impressed him deeply. After spending so much time together, he felt that Kagura could do such a thing. Looking at the egg in confusion, Hiruzen Sarutobi said hesitantly. Although I have never seen this happen, maybe there is some kind of psychic beast inside the egg. Maybe it's not weak, after all, it takes energy to channel accordingly. Kagura, you can try it again later. Quote. Nodding, Kagura gently rubbed the egg in front of her with her hand. As its summoner, Kagura did feel that the egg contained a powerful force. This energy is not inferior to the one-tail Shukaku in his body. But no matter how powerful you are, you have to be born before you can be useful. Otherwise, what can I do with an egg? Throw this egg at the enemy as a weapon. Or should I fry it in a pan to replenish energy? With a helpless sigh, he terminated the necromancy, and the egg disappeared. At this time, Jiraiya stood up and coughed several times at everyone. After everyone's attention was directed towards him, he proudly raised his head and said, Snort, you weaklings, let me show you my spiritual skills. Let you know what it means to be strong. Without giving everyone a chance to speak, he quickly made a seal and slapped the ground handsomely. Smoke rose again, but this time after the smoke dissipated, only a toad not much bigger than Tsunade's Katsuyu appeared. This toad is all green and carries a set of mini double swords on its back. At this time, it was using its tail finger, well, I should say it was picking its nose with the end of its webbed palm. Looking at the little frog in front of him, Jiraiya said in surprise. Toad Guang, am I not your elder brother who is a psychic? Where did Gamabunta go? Yes, this is just the familiar short sword in one hand and a pipe in the other, just like the younger brother of the gangsters Bunta. It has to be said that you simply cannot understand the growth period of these creatures. As the elder brother, Gamabunta is almost 5 meters tall just squatting on the ground, but as the younger brother, Gamahiro is only 30 centimeters. Hearing Jiraiya's question, Tomohiro said truthfully, Kaido. Oh, my brother is eating. He asked me to come over and tell you that if you dare not notify me in advance next time, you can call him at will. He'll come over and kick your ass. Okay, I've heard the message, and I'm going back. Bye-bye. After saying that, it disappeared in front of everyone without waiting for Jiraiya to respond. Jiraiya was abandoned by his summoned spirit beast and was alone in the wind. Kagura, who felt the same way, gave him a comforting look. Tsunade on the side couldn't help it anymore, rolling back and forth on the ground with her belly in her hands, laughing. Orochimaru was relatively more reserved, but he covered his mouth and stood aside and snickered. The nonsense scene ended here. After everyone cancelled the summons, everyone had a good night's rest in the forest. During the next 2 days of travel, they encountered no enemies blocking their way. Thanks to this, everyone rushed much faster than expected. At this time, they were sitting on a small boat. The captain standing at the bow of the boat was working hard to support the boat, preparing to send a few people to the other side. The country of Whirlpool is an island not far from the mainland, and there is currently no other way to reach it except by ferry. This is also the last part of this journey. Once they reach the shore, they will officially arrive in the kingdom of Whirlpool. Sitting on the boat, looking at the growing coastline in the distance, Kagura couldn't help but sigh. At that time, the country of Uzumaki and Konoha had long signed a friendship contract. In order to reflect the generations of friendship between the two countries, Konoha's top brass printed the Uzumaki clan's mark on Jonin's clothing. On the outside, there is Konoha, a staunch ally, and on the inside, there is the intimidation of the first clan leader, Uzumaki Ashina. During this period, the Uzumaki clan was still able to maintain peace in the village. But in the plot he was familiar with, the country of Whirlpool in front of him would be destroyed in the next 10 years. The Uzumaki clan among them was forced to flee in all directions. The reason is because other tribes are afraid of the Uzumaki clan's sealing techniques. After all, it was a ninjutsu that could seal even monsters of the tailed beast level. If they possess treasures but do not have the corresponding power, then only destruction awaits them. When the first generation clan leader Uzumaki Ashina fell, Konoha was too busy to take care of itself. In just a few years, the Whirlpool Kingdom and the Whirlpool clan disappeared into history. The collision when the wooden boat docked also brought Kagura's thoughts back. When everyone disembarked and stood on the dock, it also meant that this commission had been completed. Tamakawa bowed deeply to everyone to express his gratitude, and settled the remaining balance of the mission to Sarutobi Hiruzen on the spot. The fee for this B-level mission was 120,000 taels, because Sarutobi Hiruzen gave up the reward this time. After deducting the village's share, each of Kagura's 4 members could receive close to 20,000 taels. Generally, the cost of B-level tasks is about 80,000 to 200,000, but this is the fee that the entire team can get, and the village has to deduct certain taxes from it. By the way, let me explain the currency system in Hokage, where 1 tael approximately equals 10 yen approximately equals 0.5 Chinese currency. Closing parenthesis. After bidding farewell to Tamakawa, Sarutobi Hiruzen also announced to everyone that he would stay in the country of Whirlpool for 2 days, during which time everyone could move around freely. After all, the purpose of his coming here this time was to visit the leader of the Uzumaki clan in order to maintain the friendly relations between the 2 countries. This itself has a set of diplomatic procedures. Strictly speaking, 2 days is relatively short. Before leaving, Sarutobi Hiruzen directly gave them the cost of this mission so that they could have a good time here. Looking at the cost of the mission she just received, Kagura couldn't help but sigh that ninja is indeed a profitable profession. Although the task cost will be divided equally among the team members, in just 3 or 4 days, you can earn the original world's 10,000 yuan in Chinese currency. Even before time travel, I didn't have such earning power. Sarutobi-sensei left, taking Orochimaru with him. Because Orochimaru wanted to study the sealing technique of the Kingdom of Whirlpool, he begged Hiruzen Sarutobi to take him to the clan leader. Let's see if we can get permission from the Uzumaki clan leader to go to their academy or find Jonin directly and observe the rumored sealing techniques on the spot. The remaining 3 people looked at each other, not knowing where to go. To be honest, as ninjas, they rarely have such free time. Usually he is either practicing or performing tasks. Now that they are really free, they don't know what to do. Holding his head behind his hands, Jiraiya mentioned that he wanted to visit the bookstore here and left alone. Ever since he heard the prophecy spoken by the great toad sage on Mount Myoboku and knew that he would become a world-traveling writer in the future, he became interested in books from all over the world. When he came to the country of Whirlpool this time, he also wanted to take the opportunity to see if there were any books that were not available in Konoha village. Kagura and Tsunade were left looking at each other helplessly. After a while of silence, Kagura finally spoke. Well, it's still early. How about we also go to the village for a walk? It's rare for us to go abroad. Quote. Facing Kagura's proposal, Tsunade nodded in agreement. So 2 people, a man and a woman, began to wander aimlessly in the Uzumaki village. Looking at Kagura's back in front of her, Tsunade belatedly realized that there were only 2 of them at this time. 2 people, a man and a woman, shopping. Is this the legendary date? After the word, date, came to her mind, it was difficult to suppress it. Tsunade felt her face heat up rapidly, and her steps seemed to be floating in midair, as if she were stepping on clouds step by step. In fact, as time went on, she had confirmed that she fell in love with the idiot in front of her. When she first met him in school, it was just because of the influence of Tobarama's second uncle that she didn't like the Uchiha clan. At first, she just wanted to find trouble. But after seeing the other party's indifferent expression towards her provocation, she became serious. If you resist or show fear, forget it. After all, she is not an unreasonable person. She just bullied her once. But you turned a blind eye to me. Then I have to make you face my existence. Later, one time, I looked at the other person's delicate face and there was a trace of impatience. No, what do you mean? Shouldn't you feel angry? Are you impatient because you think I'm naive? Then, as the provocateur, she became angry. By some mistake, she actually waved her fist at Kagura. But she only felt her vision change. When she regained consciousness, she found that she had been knocked to the ground. Moreover, Orochimaru and Jiraiya also fell together. At that moment, she was really confused. Who is she? The famous Tsunade Hime of Konoha village. Even the legendary godlike being Senju Hashirama often peed on his head when he was a child. How dare you, a boy, hit yourself? And as a descendant of the Senju clan, he is also regarded as a genius among this new generation. However, he was instantly killed by an unknown boy from Uchiha. She was so proud that she did not tell her family about this incident after returning home, but it also aroused her desire to challenge Kagura. But after that time, Kagura seemed to have completely given up on some bottom line. In the future, every time he provoked him verbally, he would beat himself up without hesitation. Even Orochimaru, who stood aside and said nothing, did not escape. In this way, after studying in school for 3 years, they were entangled with each other for 3 years. Fortunately, maybe it was because of the friendship they formed through fighting, or maybe it was because as they grew up, Kagura realized that it was not appropriate to hit girls. The fights between them gradually became less and less, and instead they became a strange friendship. Then they graduated, and they lost again in the graduation exam, and the guy got first place again. After learning about the class placement, I originally thought that my fate with that guy was over. It was precisely because of this that she was so strong in asking Kagura to celebrate with them. But unexpectedly, they met again during the class placement assessment the next day. No one knew the joy that suddenly welled up in her heart when she saw Kagura that day. It was at that moment that she realized that she might have fallen in love with that annoying guy. In the subsequent assessment, that man actually defeated Sarutobi-sensei. That is Sarutobi-sensei who is about to become Hokage. Well, although the last move is a bit unsightly. Later, when Sarutobi-sensei was away, he gradually became the leader of the team without knowing it. Even she didn't notice that she, who had always wanted to be strong all her life, acquiesced to that guy's leadership position without any hesitation. Then when she went on a mission a few days ago and watched Kagura reap the lives of her enemies like a Shinigami, she was completely defeated. This man looks so handsome even from his back. Sensing something strange about Tsunade behind her, Kagura turned her head and looked over. When he saw Tsunade's red face, he instantly understood what was going on. What a joke, he's not really an 8-year-old boy who yells not to play with girls. Although he was just an otaku in his previous life, as the saying goes, he has never seen a pig running or eaten pork. As an adult who is actually in his 30s, it is not easy to see through the thoughts of this little girl at a glance. If you want to talk about his feelings for Tsunade, it's actually not bad. At first, he deliberately avoided Tsunade because he didn't want to get involved in trouble and the attention of some people because of their respective backgrounds. But after confirming that he was assigned to Class 7, he looked away and lost his initial resistance. Besides, who is Tsunade? Even leaving aside her strong political background in Konoha. A woman who will have a devilish figure in the future, can maintain her youth even in old age, and can even change her body at will, a woman who truly possesses the dual qualities of Luo and Yu. I wonder who can refuse. But if you want a person with an actual mental age of 30 years old to seduce an 8-year-old little girl, he is indeed a little reluctant. After much thought, he decided on the 3 no's policy. No initiative, no refusal, no responsibility. Well, the irresponsibility here is certainly not what you think. But he decided not to consider the troublesome issues caused by their backgrounds, which would give Hokage a headache in the future. After noticing something strange about Tsunade, Kagura still maintained a calm demeanor and took her sightseeing in the village. Facts have proved that when a man is determined to coax a woman, it is actually a very simple question. With huge sums of money in their hands, they began to enjoy their rare holiday time. He took Tsunade to various shops with ease, buying her some favorite little gifts from time to time. Then he took her to try various food stalls here and tasted delicacies they had never seen in Konoha. Under Kagura's intentional guidance, Tsunade lost her initial nervousness and began to slowly enjoy this rare date. Hee, I'm just taking a woman shopping. Who didn't train with his mother when he was a child? At this time, they were walking down the street holding dorayaki in one hand and an unknown red bean and glutinous rice dumpling in the other. Taking a hard bite of the dorayaki on her hand, Tsunade said vaguely. Woo, the dorayaki here is very different from the one in Konoha. It doesn't contain red beans, but some candied flower petals. Although it is very unique, I still like the dorayaki with red bean paste. Quote. Kagura also took a bite of the dumpling in her hand, feeling the soft and chewy texture. After swallowing the food in her mouth, Tsunade stole a glance at him and whispered. But, I still like to eat the food you cook the most, Kagura. Then when you get back, just ask Orochimaru and Jiraiya to come to my house and I'll cook it for you. As he spoke, he quickly finished off the remaining dumplings and threw the bamboo sticks into the trash can on the side. Tsunade's face lit up, and then she muttered in a voice that could only be heard with some pain. But, I want you to cook for me alone. What? What did you just say? Kagura looked at her doubtfully and asked. He really didn't hear clearly. Tsunade quickly turned her head to the other side and shouted, Kaido. I didn't say anything, you heard wrong. After scratching his ears, Kagura was about to say something. At this time, two girls passed by them one after another, and a girl behind them was shouting. Hey, Fuso, wait for me. Hearing that name, Kagura suddenly stopped where he was. Seeing Kagura stopped in place, Tsunade looked at him doubtfully and said. What's wrong? At this time, Kagura finally found the owner of that name from his memory. He quickly turned back to look at the girl walking in front. The girl seemed to be a year or two older than them, and she was wearing the most common female clothing here. However, what attracted his attention the most was the fiery red hair that represented the characteristics of the Uzumaki clan. That's her. With a flash of his eyes, Kagura quickly turned around and chased after him. Fortunately, the opponent's speed was not fast. After taking a few steps, he caught up with the girl. He quickly called to the other party. Excuse me, is your name Uzumaki Fuso? Hearing her name, the girl stopped and turned to look at Kagura. But after seeing Kagura's appearance, she couldn't remember that she had ever known such a person. She asked doubtfully, I am. May I ask who you are? After hearing the admission from the girl in front of him, Kagura showed a happy smile on his face. Yes, I am Uzumaki Fuso. May I ask who you are? Kagura felt happy after hearing the admission from the girl in front of her. Sure enough, she is that person. At this time, Tsunade finally caught up from behind. Kagura, what's wrong with you? She glanced at the two girls in front of her in confusion, then looked at Kagura and asked. Seeing Tsunade's appearance, Fuso couldn't help but frown. Looking at the two strangers in front of her who were obviously not from the Kingdom of Whirlpool, she instinctively raised her vigilance. Due to the special nature of the Uzumaki clan, many clan members in the village have been abducted by outsiders recently. Especially women with more powerful abilities are the primary targets of those people. Kagura, who looked excited at this time, seemed not to notice the vigilance on her face, and said. Hello, Miss Fuso. We are ninjas from Konoha, and this time we came to the Kingdom of Whirlpool for a mission. Quote. When he heard Kagura say that he was from Konoha, Fuso secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and the previous vigilance in his eyes disappeared. As an ally of the Fuso clan for generations, it can be said that Konoha is the most trustworthy person besides her clan members. After the introduction, Kagura seemed to be in a state of hesitation, but then he spoke again as if he had made some decision. Miss Fuso, please remember what I say next. If you encounter any difficulties in the future, or encounter a desperate situation, please, you must come to Konoha for help. Either you or your child. Or we Konoha will do our best to protect you. Please remember what I said today and believe in us. Fuso sad face, operator operator, Tsunade. Degree. The best friend standing next to Fusang was looking back and forth between the two of them with excitement. Ya lower half circle yahihi, is this a confession? Tsunade behind her was initially stunned, but quickly turned to anger. Gritting her teeth, she threw the unfinished dorayaki on the ground and shouted towards Kagura with a slight cry. Kagura, you scumbag, I misjudged you. After saying that, she ran out without looking back. Only then did Kagura realize that what she had just said was ambiguous and looked at Tsunade running away in panic. He quickly bowed to Fusang and said, Miss Fuso, please remember what I just said. After saying that, he followed Tsunade's figure and chased after her. Watching the two people walking away, Fusang felt as if he had had an unreal dream. It wasn't until his best friend touched him with his hand that he woke up from his dream. She saw her best friend looking at her with an 8 trigrams look on her face and asked curiously. Fuso, where did you meet that boy? Or from Konoha? Speaking of which, that boy looks a bit handsome. Well, he is just a little young, and he seems to be quite scumbag, and a little stupid. I don't know where to hide even if I want to be in 2 different places. Quote. Hearing this, she looked at her best friend in horror, shook her head in denial and said. What are you saying? I didn't know that boy at all, and it was my first time to see him. Quote. After saying that, she tried hard to recall what Kagura had just said to her, and said to herself in hindsight. No, he must be sick. Kagura chased Tsunade all the way and finally returned to their hotel. Yes, the Uzumaki country, which had already known that Hiruzen Sarutobi would be visiting, had already arranged a hotel for everyone to rest. The two of them also came to the hotel to put down everyone's luggage before going out for fun. Standing in front of Tsunade's room, Kagura explained helplessly. Tsunade, listen to me, it's not what you think. I am not confessing, but there is another reason. Quote. Tsunade's muffled voice came from the room. Then please explain the reason. Forehead. Kagura opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. There was indeed a reason why he stopped the girl just now. The name Fuso may be a little unfamiliar to everyone, but all viewers must know her son, that is Nagato. Yes, it was the one with the Samsara eye who founded the Akatsuki organization. Later, he killed Jiraiya and destroyed the entire Konoha village by himself. And his mother is Uzumaki Fuso. In the original plot, because the kingdom of Uzumaki was destroyed, Uzumaki Fuso's family wandered to the kingdom of Rain. Later, during the Second Ninja War, she and her husband were accidentally killed by Konoha ninjas who came to search for food, leaving Nagato alone. Later, due to a series of changes, Nagato gradually became an important enemy on Naruto's growth path. It is precisely because he is familiar with the plot of this series that Kagura had such a big reaction when he realized who Fuso was. Although now he still subconsciously believes that it is Naruto and Sasuke's mission to save the world. But if given the opportunity, he wouldn't mind using his familiarity with the plot to change some things and reduce the occurrence of some tragedies. For Fuso, if she could have sought shelter from Konoha instead of wandering to the land of Rain, then he believes Nagato's future will be completely different. But the biggest problem now is that he can't explain to Tsunade. Could it be that he said that he came from the future and was trying to change the life of the girl just now? He didn't even believe it when he said it. After a long silence, Tsunade finally shouted angrily. You have nothing to say. Walk. Get out of here. Why? With a helpless sigh, Kagura could only leave silently. Hearing the footsteps leaving the door, Tsunade sadly buried her head in the quilt and murmured. Kagura, you idiot. As night fell, Kagura didn't expect that the first person to come back was not Jiraiya, but Orochimaru. When he came back, he had an afterthought look on his face. It seemed that he had gained a lot today. He didn't come back to his senses until he saw Kagura outside the hotel. After looking at Kagura who was alone, he seemed to realize something and said. Did you argue with Tsunade again? Kagura nodded helplessly. Seeing this, Orochimaru said nothing and just sat next to him with a smile. After a pause, he continued. Well, Tsunade is actually a very gentle girl. And you know, she likes you. So sometimes I will get a little angry with you. Quote. When Kagura heard this, she could only shake her head helplessly. This time was different. He couldn't explain it even if he wanted to. In fact, after spending the past few years together, Orochimaru is the one who most subverts Kagura's impression. As the villain in the original work that runs through the entire storyline, Orochimaru is the childhood nightmare of many children. But as one of the rare villains who can be cleared up in the later stages, he is also a person full of contradictions. At least in Kagura's eyes, Orochimaru is just a humble and polite person who has a persistent pursuit of ninjutsu. If it weren't for Danzo and others' misguidance, he would be more likely to become a scientific madman. As for Tsunade's feelings for Kagura, in fact, not only him, but even Jiraiya also knew it very well. Perhaps because of this, Jiraiya rarely expresses his emotions to Tsunade. But this is okay, because Kagura knows very well that even without him, there will be no result between Jiraiya and Tsunade. Looking at Orochimaru in front of her, Kagura changed the subject and said. It seems that you gained a lot from following Sarutobi-sensei today. After hearing what he was interested in, Orochimaru could no longer keep his calm expression and said enthusiastically. Yes, the Uzumaki clan's sealing techniques are truly extraordinary. Do you know, it is fundamentally different from all the sealing techniques we have learned. At this time, Orochimaru was uncharacteristically chattering to Kagura about today's gains. Kagura did not interrupt him, but acted as a qualified audience, listening silently to what he had to say. After he finally finished, Kagura spoke. It seems that you really like studying ninjutsu. Looking at Orochimaru, who looked unfinished in front of him, he thought for a while before saying again. I heard from Sarutobi-sensei that you only became interested in ninjutsu after your parents passed away, right? Upon hearing Kagura's question, Orochimaru's expression instantly returned to calm. He nodded silently. Seeing this, Kagura hesitated and asked the question he had always asked. Then you are so passionate about ninjutsu because you want to develop ninjutsu that can resurrect them? Orochimaru thought about this seriously, then slowly shook his head and replied. No, but they made me understand that human life is too fragile. But humans can gain power by learning ninjutsu. If immortality can be achieved, can humans gain the truth of this world by learning ninjutsu? Looking at Orochimaru with clear eyes, Kagura did not object to his point of view, but looked at the starry sky above her head. The night sky in this world was different from that in his previous life. The unpolluted sky was as clear as a black curtain. The curtain is covered with shining stars, and the bright stars form the most wonderful picture. After taking a deep breath, he said slowly, human life is fragile, but it is also the most powerful. Because everything we are in now is the legacy of countless human struggles. Life cannot last forever, but the spirit can. The immortal spirit is far more powerful than simple force. Quote. He looked at Orochimaru sincerely and continued. I saw a quote once. Death is the greatest gift given by gods to mankind. And eternal life is the greatest curse to mankind. Quote. After saying that, he patted Orochimaru, stood up and walked into the hotel. Looking at his back, Orochimaru showed a thoughtful expression. Naturally, the conversation with Orochimaru was not due to Kagura's whim. After that day's battle, he had keenly felt the desire hidden in Orochimaru's eyes when he looked at him. Thinking back to Orochimaru's obsession with Sharingan in the original work, he naturally understood what that trace of desire represented. But these years of getting along with him made him feel that Orochimaru's nature was not bad, so he had this conversation deliberately. It can be regarded as an attempt on his part to save his friend. 2 days flew by. Sarutobi Hiruzen had hardly appeared in front of them in the past 2 days. Orochimaru seemed to be approved and ran to the local ninja academy all day long. I didn't come back until evening with a satisfied look on my face. As for Jiraiya, he seemed even crazier. According to him, he found many unique copies of novels here that were not available in Konoha. But whether it was due to lack of money or because I couldn't move so many books back, Jiraiya finally decided to stay in the bookstore and read as many books as possible. At this point, he was stuck in the bookstore almost all day, and he didn't even come back to the hotel at night. Kagura, who was left behind, could only face the angry Tsunade alone in embarrassment. Although he tried to buy gifts or talk to her to calm her anger, it obviously didn't have much effect. Today, Class 7 gathered again at the dock. There was a large basket of packed books behind Jiraiya, and Orochimaru was holding a scroll and recording something on it from time to time. Only Tsunade turned her head and looked aside, standing far away from Kagura. Looking at Tsunade, who was obviously having a tantrum, Sarutobi Hiruzen was a little confused, but he just thought that Tsunade was being childish and ignored him. After returning to the mainland via ship, everyone began to move towards Konoha village. Although on the way here, Fuchuin's pace was not slow. But compared to these ninjas, there is still a big difference. On this return trip, everyone was sprinting the entire way. In the forest, several black shadows kept flashing through the tall trees. It took them 3 days to walk before, but this time they arrived at the outskirts of Konoha village in just 1 day. He estimated the remaining distance in his mind and looked up at the blazing sun hanging above his head. Sarutobi Hiruzen raised his right hand to signal the team to stop. As several black shadows flashed by, 4 figures suddenly appeared behind him. Sarutobi Hiruzen said, "It's about 2 hours' journey from here to the village. Find a place under the shade of a tree and have something to eat before setting off." After everyone nodded, they fell directly to the ground and began to rest on the spot. After fumbling around in her backpack, Kagura took out a piece of cake. "This is a pastry I bought 2 days ago when I was in Whirlpool Country. It is made of honey, rice cake and red beans. While maintaining a good taste, it also has the characteristics of being able to be stored for a long time. So before leaving, Kagura specially bought a few pieces to use as dry food on the road. Looking at the last piece of cake in his hand, Kagura thought for a while, handed it to Tsunade opposite and said, "This is delicious, do you want to try it?" Snort. Hearing this, Tsunade turned her head and said angrily, "Kaido, if anyone wants to eat your food, you should keep it for your little sister in the country of whirlpools. This little pepper, no need to be angry for so long." Kagura thought helplessly. Orochimaru and Jiraiya were currently eating their own dry food and looking at the two of them with interest. A look of eating melon. As for Sarutobi Hiruzen, he has become accustomed to this situation in the past 2 days. Apart from lamenting how wonderful youth is, I didn't have much thought. Seeing this situation, Kagura had no choice but to eat the cake silently. After drinking some water, he leaned directly against the tree trunk and rested with his eyes half closed. Suddenly, the system's voice sounded in his mind. Ding! Trigger emergency mission. Mission option 1. Successfully escape from the Golden Horn. Mission reward. You can randomly draw a ninjutsu and understand it. Ninjutsu level must be a level or above. Mission option 2. Successfully kill the Golden Horn. Mission reward. You can randomly draw a ninjutsu and understand it. Ninjutsu level must be S level or above. Only one of the 2 mission options can be completed and cannot be repeated. Quote. After hearing the mission information clearly in her mind, Kagura stood up in shock. Who is Golden Horn? That was a legendary figure who influenced the development of the entire ninja world. Especially as a ninja from Konoha village, even students at the Ninja Academy have heard of this name. In the late stages of the First Ninja War, which was not far away from now, Kumogakure village began to split into the main war faction and the Peacemaker faction. Among them, the Peacemaker headed by the second Hokage decided to truce and form an alliance with the Leaf village. During the alliance ceremony, it was the brothers Gold and Silver who led their men to suddenly launch a coup, killing second Hokage on the spot and wounding second Hokage Senju Tobarama. The Konoha forces took advantage of the chaos and fled the scene, but were pursued by elite troops led by the Golden Horn and Silver Horn brothers. Second Hokage Senju Tobarama tested everyone's overall perspective and ability to act at a critical moment, and then alone led the enemy's cover team to retreat. Unfortunately, facing a large number of opponents, Senju Tobarama was ultimately defeated. Senju Tobarama was seriously injured and died shortly after. In that battle, all 20 elite troops led by Jinzhao Yinzhao were wiped out. The 2 brothers also suffered huge injuries in that battle, but they did not die. Later, a disciple of second Hokage, died at the hands of Golden Horn and Silver Horn. After taking office as the third Hokage, he was determined to avenge his master and carried the heads of the 2 brothers to his master's funeral. The 2 Gold and Silver Horns, who had been seriously injured in the previous battle with Senju Tobarama, were ultimately unable to withstand the pursuit of the strongest spear, and thus ended their legendary lives. The information about the 2 brothers quickly flashed through his mind, and Kagura's face quickly turned pale. Although I don't know what happened, the Golden Horn that was supposed to die at the hands of the third Hokage actually appeared outside Konoha village. But this is not the time to delve into this matter. Kagura is currently thinking hard about the possibility of escaping. It wasn't that he didn't have confidence in Hiruzen Sarutobi next to him, it was just that this enemy was too powerful. As Golden Horn, who is revered as the 2 rays of light in the clouds, together with Silverhorn, its strength is far more powerful than what is revealed in the animation plot. He is a chakra with tailed beast level. What is even more terrifying is the ferocious character of the 2 brothers. After being swallowed by Nine Tails, they actually ate Nine Tails' meat directly from Nine Tails' stomach. In the end, even Nine Tails had no choice but to spit them out and let the 2 brothers go. They also gained the power of Nine Tails as a blessing in disguise, and were even able to use Nine Tails' tailed beast form. Most importantly, they also possess the 5 great ninja tools handed down from the Sage of 6 Paths. Every piece of ninja tool has the ability to affect a war. Therefore, according to the original plot record, even when facing 2 seriously injured brothers, third Hokage could only rely on sneak attacks to achieve the final victory. Such a shadow-level powerhouse who was once superior to the 5 Hokages is really beyond the power of the current Sarutobi Hiruzen. Seeing Kagura's strange behavior, Sarutobi Hiruzen looked over in confusion. But before he spoke, his expression suddenly changed and he immediately stood up. He stared at the woods ahead with a stern expression. Seeing this, the other 3 looked at each other in confusion. Then a few seconds later, even the 3 of them felt an unspeakable danger from the front. Everyone quickly made a defensive stance and looked at the woods ahead with a horrified look. Although it was already noon, the depths of the woods ahead were still dark, as if a black hole from the abyss was staring at them. As a gust of wind blew by, a terrifying coercion struck from the front. Facing that pressure, Kagura and others felt as if they were fighting against the baptism of the storm on the sea. Just when Tsunade felt that she was about to collapse, a hoarse and crazy voice finally came from the front. "Oh, it seems that I have met an acquaintance. Oh, it seems that I have met an acquaintance." As the slightly crazy voice came, a figure gradually appeared in front of everyone. The person has long yellow hair, 2 erect horns on the top of his head, and 6 paths beard-like texture on his cheeks. Wearing purple short sleeves, with a white vest from Kumogakure Jonin on the outside, and a forehead protector from Kumogakure with a horizontal stroke on his head. With a slightly tall figure, the most eye-catching thing is that he has the word, "Gold," tattooed on his arm and holds a huge banana fan in his hand. At this time, he was walking towards them slowly with an unhurried pace with an arrogant look on his face. Finally, he stopped more than 10 meters away from everyone. He looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen and the people behind him with a rather amused look. Looking at the person in front of him, what happened in the past appeared in Sarutobi Hiruzen's mind. He gritted his teeth and shouted out the name he had shouted out countless times in nightmares this year. Golden Horn. As a ninja, the fact that he relied on Lord Tobarama's self-sacrifice to survive has been tormenting his heart. If it weren't for the fact that he had to be Hokage and be responsible for the future of the entire village, he would have wanted to leave everything behind and try to get revenge. Looking at Sarutobi Hiruzen with red eyes in front of him, Golden Horn grinned and said, "Isn't this the boy from the Sarutobi family who is following Tobarama? It seems that you are not happy to see me." After hearing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen took a deep breath and quickly adjusted his emotions to keep himself calm. After all, as an experienced ninja, he knew very well that anger was more likely to lead to mistakes in combat. He secretly made a gesture to the people behind him with the hand behind his back, and said, "I wonder what the hell your Lord Jinzhao is doing here." Hearing this question, Jinzhao still smiled, tilted his head and looked at the crowd and said, "Well, after you know what happened, I can't go back to Union Village again. So during this period of time, I could only keep traveling around. I didn't expect to meet you here. I heard that you will replace Tobarama and become the 3rd Hokage." Faced with this question, Sarutobi Hiruzen remained calm, but did not answer aloud. Seeing this, Jin Zhao didn't care, but slowly raised the hand holding the banana fan, stretched out his tongue and licked it. At this moment, the smile on his face became more ferocious, and he stared at Sarutobi Hiruzen and continued. "It would be great if both the 2nd generation and the 3rd Hokage of Konoha died because of me." As soon as he finished speaking, a substantial murderous intent instantly burst out of his body. Sarutobi Hiruzen's expression changed and he shouted, "Run!" In fact, there was no need for him to speak at all. The moment the killing intent broke out, Kagura and the others had already retreated to the rear immediately. This is not because they want to abandon their teacher, but before, Sarutobi Hiruzen secretly gave everyone a signal to escape. And they also know very well that they are facing this kind of battle between shadow levels. Don't talk about them. Even if Anbu is here at this moment, he can't interfere at all. If he can leave here quickly, it will be more helpful to Sarutobi Hiruzen. The scene around him was retreating rapidly. At this time, Kagura was using his maximum speed to escape from the battlefield crazily. But before he ran very far, a voice that seemed to come from a nightmare sounded in his ears. "Kids, did I give you permission to leave?" What appeared along with the voice was the face of Jin Zhao. Seeing that familiar face, Kagura was shocked. Fortunately, he activated Sharingan before the Golden Horn appeared. At this time, facing the enemy that flashed in front of him, Kagura activated Distinguished Heavenly Gods without hesitation. A voice of doubt came from Jin Zhao's mouth, and he was unable to control his body at this time. Chance. Seeing the fleeting flaw, Kagura waved his hands forward and threw several shurikens towards the enemy in front of him. But in this short period of time, Jin Zhao has regained control of his body. An afterimage flashed by, and he actually grabbed all the weapons thrown towards him with both hands. Hey, the Uchiha brat. You are so. Before Jin Zhao finished speaking, several shurikens he grabbed exploded at the same time. It was the detonating talisman that Kagura put up in advance that worked at this moment. However, before Kagura could smile, he found that the golden horn in front of him had disappeared. After a moment, he understood what happened. This is a clone. After thinking about this, he quickly looked towards the other three people. Sure enough, just like him, Golden Horn's figure appeared in front of the other three people. The difference is that these Golden Horns only used one blow, kick or punch to knock the three Tsunade people who were also fleeing from the air to the ground. Bang, 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 3 collision sounds sounded, and 3 deep pits instantly appeared on the ground. As the dust mist dissipated, the figures of Jiraiya and Orochimaru slowly appeared. They were lying on their sides in the deep pit, and were knocked unconscious by this blow. On the contrary, Tsunade, at the last critical moment, used her strange strength in time to barely resist the blow. However, at this time, she could only stand staggeringly, a trace of blood spilled from the corner of her mouth, and her eyes were full of horror. The 3 golden-horned clones parked on the tree were shocked when they saw this scene. Although it is just his clone, there is no difference in physical skills from his original body. And these little devils appeared one after another who could escape his pursuit. Thinking of this, bloodthirsty smiles appeared on their lips. With a kick of his feet, 3 figures rushed towards Tsunade, who stood slightly trembling. Seeing the 3 black figures rushing towards her, a trace of despair flashed in Tsunade's eyes. He is worthy of being the person who can knock down his second grandfather. Even if it is just a casual blow, he cannot block it. She could still stand up at this time just because she didn't want to admit defeat. But she knew in her heart that her body couldn't move at all at this time. She closed her eyes in despair, but something flashed through her mind. If I had known better, I wouldn't have lost my temper with that idiot. At this critical moment, a sea of fire suddenly appeared in front of her. The 3 black shadows that looked like messengers from hell slowly disappeared in the sea of fire, and were actually burned to ashes. Fire style, the art of fire. It was Sarutobi Hiruzen who arrived just in time. Just when he said the word, run, the golden horn in front of him that originally exuded murderous intent was like a phantom, gradually dispersing in front of him. Seeing this situation, Sarutobi Hiruzen was slightly startled, and then he understood instantly. His target is his own students. Although he rushed over immediately, he still failed to stop him in time. Fortunately, he finally caught up with Tsunade at her most critical moment. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, a black shadow rushed out again behind Tsunade. Another golden horn. At this time, he was diving towards Tsunade, laughing loudly and saying, "If I'm not mistaken, this is a brat from Tobarama's family. Let me take her to visit Tobarama." Sarutobi Hiruzen's heart tightened and he rushed towards Tsunade. However, compared to Kumo Hidden Village, who are better at practicing physical arts, Sarutobi Hiruzen's speed is far slower than Golden Horn. What's more, Golden Horn is closer to Tsunade. In the desperate eyes of Sarutobi Hiruzen, Golden Horn had already rushed in front of Tsunade. He raised his right hand with a grin, and the powerful punch even caused a gust of wind when it landed. Unable to move, Tsunade could only watch as the fist grew bigger and bigger. However, right now, a familiar figure suddenly appeared in front of her. Looking at the familiar background in front of her, Tsunade didn't know why, her eyes were wet with tears. The person who came was none other than Kagura, who had been rushing here. After knocking down the clone in front of him, he instantly realized Golden Horn's purpose and rushed towards the 3 of them immediately. However, even Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't catch up immediately, so how could he be faster than Sarutobi? So he saw the 3 people being shot down to the ground like cannonballs. Even when the 3 clones rushed towards Tsunade, he could only witness it all helplessly. Fortunately, Sarutobi Hiruzen's ninjutsu saved Tsunade, and he finally came to Tsunade at the last moment. Golden Horn's raised right hand was wrapped with a trace of lightning. It was obvious that he had used some kind of lightning-style ninjutsu to strengthen his body. Seeing Uchiha Kagura suddenly appearing in front of him, the grin on Jin Zhao's face became even more fierce, and he continued to wave his fist without any hesitation. The huge fist was like a god coming down from the earth, and it rushed towards the two people with a trace of lightning and a sound of breaking through the air. Seeing the thunderous blow in front of him, Kagura gritted his teeth and concentrated all the chakra on his right hand. In the direction where the blow fell, he also threw a straight punch with an indomitable momentum. It's the strange power I learned from Tsunade. Tsunade's strange power isn't technically a ninjutsu. She only created that kind of strange power effect through the flow and use of her own chakra, combined with her own natural strength, and after fusion. With Sharingan's Kagura, it is naturally easy to learn this trick. In the astonished gaze of Sarutobi Hiruzen, the two fists, one large and one small, finally collided together. At the moment of collision, the place suddenly became quiet. Then a huge amount of energy burst out from the two people's fists, forming an invisible shock wave that spread out around the two people. However, the gap in strength between the two is too great. The mutual stalemate lasted for less than a second, and Kagura's expression suddenly changed, and his whole body hit Tsunade behind him like a shell. The huge impact caused the two of them to knock down tens of meters of trees in a straight line, and finally stopped after hitting a hard boulder. The boulder was smashed to create a huge gap, and the two figures finally emerged. Behind her, Tsunade had fainted and fell to the ground. Fortunately, judging from her still heaving chest, she was still alive. Compared to Tsunade, Kagura's condition seemed a little bad. His right hand was turned out at an unnatural angle and was obviously broken. There was a trace of blood flowing from the corner of his mouth, and he knelt down on one knee weakly. Although it seemed like a disastrous defeat, he still took the fatal blow from Golden Horn. Seeing that Uchiha Kid actually took over his attack again, Golden Horn, instead of being angry, actually laughed wildly. However, before he could make another move, Sarutobi Hiruzen finally rushed in front of him. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he just finished forming a hand seal. There was a tremor on the ground, and suddenly an earth dragon appeared in front of him and rushed towards the Golden Horn. However, this was not the end. When the earth dragon attacked, Sarutobi Hiruzen puffed up his cheeks and spit out a stream of flames. The flames enveloped the earth dragon, creating a fire-breathing earth dragon. It is the compound ninja technique, earth dragon fire style. However, facing such an attack, Jin Zhao still stood motionless with a ferocious smile on his face. The earth dragon carried flames and flooded Jin Zhao's body. But Sarutobi Hiruzen, who succeeded with one blow, showed no excitement at all on his face, but instead became more solemn. This is actually a clone. Just when this thought flashed through his mind, Golden Horn's hoarse voice came from above again. Kid Hiruzen, you are still not cautious enough. Have you forgotten that anger is a taboo for ninjas? I saw that the real Golden Horn had jumped into the air at this time. Veins popped out in his right hand holding the banana fan, and he swung it hard at Sarutobi Hiruzen's back. 5 energy light groups of different colors appeared from the tip of the banana fan. After a brief stagnation, these light groups turned into 5 giant dragons and roared towards Sarutobi Hiruzen. Bang! As an explosion sounded, a huge explosion occurred where Sarutobi Hiruzen was originally standing. The violent explosion directly vaporized the trees within a radius of 100 meters. The aftermath of the explosion formed a violent wind in the forest, whizzing towards the entire forest. Orochimaru and others who were originally lying on the ground were also blown away by the explosion. Falling slowly from the air, Golden Horn stared at the direction where Sarutobi Hiruzen originally stood. The dust mist slowly dissipated, revealing a semicircular earth wall surrounded by trees. However, most of this earthen wall has been damaged. Looking from the wreckage, there is a cage composed of dozens of wishful sticks. The person inside the cage was none other than Hiruzen Sarutobi. Before those 5 attacks hit, he instantly used the earth style and the diamond prison wall formed by the summoned Ape King and Ape Demon to resist the wave of attacks. Judging from his rapid breathing and blood-stained upper right body, he was not able to completely resist all the impacts. Seeing Hiruzen Sarutobi in the cage, Golden Horn did not show any disappointment. He stared at Sarutobi Hiruzen, and slowly raised his right hand holding the banana fan again. Although there was a trace of exhaustion on his face, he still waved the fan firmly again. Seeing the familiar 5 energy attacks, Sarutobi Hiruzen did not sit still and wait for death. With a stern look in his eyes, he quickly lifted the diamond prison wall. Bang, 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 bang. He quickly made hand seals, and as 4 voices sounded, 4 more shadow clones appeared around him. He is worthy of being called Professor Ninjutsu. Each of the 5 Sarutobi Hiruzen formed different hand seals and used ninjutsu with 5 different attributes: fire, thunder, water, earth, and wind to attack forward at the same time. 5 escapes. The art of Dalian bullets. Bang! A loud noise sounded again, and a destructive explosion even stronger than before rose in the battlefield. As if encountering a horrific natural disaster, a large area of dense forest was instantly razed to the ground. Several kilometers away from the battlefield, Jiraiya endured the severe pain and put down the last piece of Jiraiya in his hand. Kagura sat on the ground as if she was exhausted. At this time, Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya were lying neatly in front of him. As the only person who could still stay awake, he quickly hugged Tsunade behind him and moved away from the battlefield long before the first wave of explosions. After placing Tsunade, he went back to find Orochimaru and Jiraiya not far away, and took them to a mountainside away from the battlefield. In fact, when a 2-choice task appeared in the system, he could deduce the strength of the Golden Horn from it. After all, if it weren't for the difficulty of killing the Golden Horn, the system wouldn't be able to provide an alternative mission for you to choose from. It was only when he heard the constant explosions in the distance and looked at the flattened woods that Kagura deeply understood the power of a shadow-level powerhouse. Looking at the 2 people in the distance who were only as big as black dots but constantly causing huge explosions, Kagura fell into thinking. First of all, Hiruzen Sarutobi cannot die. At least you can't die here. With the current structure of Konoha village, if Hiruzen Sarutobi is really dead, then the only person who can serve as the 3rd Hokage is Danzo. If Danzo becomes a Hokage, then he may have no other choice but to defect from Konoha. But that's not right. According to the original plot, it is impossible for Hiruzen Sarutobi to die during this period. After all, why does the Golden Horn appear here? At this time, shouldn't he and Ginkaku be killed by the 3rd Raikage? Could it be that my own time travel caused the butterfly effect? Speaking of which, where did Silverhorn go? Suddenly, Kagura felt as if she had grasped the key point. After carefully recalling the entire process of meeting Jin Zhao, an idea appeared in his mind. Is this really the case? Just as he was muttering to himself, the battle not far away suddenly changed. A chakra appeared in the battle that frightened Kagura. He quickly looked up and vaguely saw an orange-red figure with several waving tails roaring. This is... Kagura's eyes narrowed, and she already had a guess in her heart. Being familiar with the plot, he naturally knew that this was Nine-Tails' tailed beast clothed state. Seeing that Golden Horn has directly changed into this state to fight, Sarutobi Hiruzen, who is not dominant at all, may be in danger. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.